This is the best damn league, sure. Period. Full stop. It's all UK people. But it was period when Dom named it, and when we, depending on if any lawyers are listening, appropriated the title from the sports show that had a similar name. So anyway, obviously it's the LEC talk show, isn't it? And our guest for this one is Torok, who is a British coach of the team called Nightbirds, which is actually a Slovakian team. So they play in a different ERL than you guys are probably aware of. But that's it. By the way, that in itself is an interesting angle. Like, listen, I'll totally admit, Torok, I'm looking for different people who can be guests. And obviously, a lot of the LEC talent are tied up because we often actually have to record this on a Friday. And sometimes either LEC is then or it's the day after. So it's really hard to get talent come. So that's why, if you notice, I'm going a bit further afield. So when I'm looking at all the RLs, oh yeah, if I see like a British flag, so I know they speak English, you are immediately going to get like a chance to come on. But what are you doing in that league, bro? You're not in LLC. What are you doing in the Slovakian fucking scene? What's going on?
I've been all across the ERLs,
Right.
to be honest. I've done Greece, I've done Spain, I've done NLC, I've done whichever one will have me. I've done Germany at different points. For me, I mean, I had to leave the NLC way back when, because when Excel and Astralis and all of and Fnatic Academy, when they all withdrew, the NLC basically had a huge black hole of funding.
Sure.
So if you wanted to coach and have it as a profession, it was impossible. So then it's been like the eternal battle to try and establish yourself in other countries. So yeah, I'm always welcome in the NLC, but it's impossible to be there. I mean, even now, really.
Sure. By the way, over your career, who are some famous players? Are there some players we'd know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Eminez.
That's got to
be a huge one. That's got to be a huge one, right?
The infamous Eminez. In fact, you must be able to tell us something about him because you had him on the rise, I'm guessing, yeah?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I could, that was a really big one. I guess Kreis, he still plays in the LFL.
Sure, he was once a top talent, yeah.
Yeah, Dan used to be in LEC. A couple of others who've been about in different places at different times. I mean, currently, if I just cast back to Giant X Academy, for example, now they just won the Superliga, right? This summer,
the Jets Pride,
was with them. I was sort of building that first iteration of that roster for the Iberian Cup back last year, where we brought in Losper instead of Seaz, which is like a really big change. I think he's done very well. And also a couple of the notable rookies as well. I've mentored like Slayer, for example, gave him his first competitive like professional contract, who's this like 16-year-old Ukrainian rookie. Won his first competition with him, and now he's on Koi, I believe. So yeah, a couple of up and comers, a couple of people, but I've always been in the academy setups. So I've taken a lot of people on their way up usually, or on their way down, which is a fun little journey.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Let's get into the episode then. So we always let the guests start first. So what is good at the moment about LEC, Torok?
Well, I brought forward Myrwn as my this is a really good point. Felt like this is a player that I've admired for a long time. So this is something I could just talk about in general, and it was just great that he had a really good weekend, as far as I'm concerned. The fact that he is still being his typical self, his authentic very, very authentic to his gameplay and very authentic to his style. And instead of going away from that when he joined LEC, he actually refined it, and also the coaching staff, of course, around him enable him to play in the way he wants. It's so fantastic for Europe, and it's really good. Also, when they go to Worlds, I'm very pro the fact that he brings out a lot of champions, that he has this flexibility in draft, and he is such a strong laner on top of that. Like, he's really intelligent. He's very strong on a micro level. So when he gets, his pick in the right position, and it's the right sort of level of flexibility as well, that's given his team a draft edge. I mean, this guy is just winning games by himself just through the sort of pressure and output that he generates. I think that's super fantastic. So yeah, I'm big on him this week, and just in general, in fairness.
Sure.
If people don't know, Peter, as he famously pointed out in my interview with him, originally tried to himself get Myrwn to Heretics. It's just, the problem is, essentially someone went, you can have Wonder. And it's like, well, listen, Myrwn, it's been real, but I can get Wonder, bro. Like, I don't blame him. You actually wanted to bring this guy to LEC, didn't you, Peter?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, like, one of the things that people often criticize about the Heretics roster was that it was a bit secondary carry focused, and yeah, so we were looking for like a carry top laner that we could really, really play through, and Myrwn was the one that I really, really liked. We brought him in for Iberia Cup specifically to scout him for LEC and see if he was ready, and he performed really, really well in that tournament. He's the type of guy where, so not only is he plays a creative champion, he's willing to like educate his teammates, right? He doesn't think, oh, I'm going to play Fiddlesticks top, so everyone on this team should understand how to play Fiddlesticks top. He's like, okay, I want to play Fiddlesticks top, so I know that I'm going to now have to spend 3 hours and at least educating my teammates for how to play Fiddlesticks top, so that they can see things in the same way that I see things, whether or not that's correct. And I'm going to go and invest time into it. I'm going to be creative. I'm not going to get downhearted if things go to shit, because he was creative in the first game against Fnatic. It didn't go well, but you look at sometimes you get players who are creative, it goes badly, they look downhearted. He's not downhearted going off stage. He knows it's just a single one-off game. It doesn't matter. They tried something, it didn't work. He was probably partly to blame for losing that first game, but he just doesn't care. He's just going to go and run it back, and he bounces back emotionally very, very well. And I think the thing about Myrwn is he's also incredibly clutch. And I saw this stat. I think that the Koi are like 3-0 or 4-0 in game 5s this year.
It makes sense. They killed it in spring, yeah.
Yeah. And basically, they win game. They normally lose game 1, lose game 4, win game 2 and 3. And then 100% win rate.
By the way, that's going to be one of the weirdest records ever to be that clutch and come from behind. Just seems very rare.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, obviously they've lost series as well, right? But
of course,
if they're losing series in 4 games, their win rate in game 2 and 3 is above 50%, but it's not 80% or something, right? And I would say that, but I would say that Myrwn, incredibly clutch, and incredibly clutch when it matters, because people may forget, but this year obviously Koi are one of the best teams in the league, right? Everyone realizes the Koi are top 3 team in the league, but last year they weren't considered a top 3 team in the league, and they won in upper bracket against G2 to go to Worlds
in the regional.
And who was the person who hard carried that series? It was Myrwn. Myrwn was had one of the best individual top lane European top laner best of 5 performances that I've seen against Broken Blade, right? Which was very impressive. And that's why they went to Worlds. Maybe they would have struggled in lower bracket, but they didn't need to play in lower bracket last year. And, I think that speaks a lot to his mentality as well, right? I think this guy he's got hands. Sometimes all LEC players have hands, but let's say he doesn't have hands to the extent Canna has hands, but he has he's creative, right? He will find creative ways to get an advantage. But the thing that really makes Myrwn stand out is his mentality, both towards his team and towards himself, right? He doesn't let himself get down and things like this. And that's a really valuable asset to have on a team where, let's say that some of the people on Koi have a reputation for being very intense, right? And having somebody like this and having Jojo, I think, as well on that team is a very good balance to, you have some more lighthearted people, you have some more intense people. And I think Myrwn is definitely a really important part of that team for how it functions as a unit, right? As well as in game, I would say.
No, in general, I actually do think that Myrwn's one of the more interesting players on their team, because if you look at the position he's in now, that they've integrated Jojo, you could argue he's not going to ever get catered to outside of his picks. That's it. You're on a team where you're the stars is actually probably the fucking ADC in the jungle, if I'm being honest. But in terms of the roles, traditional ones, it's going to be mid and ADC. That's just the players you've got, and it's a league that plays that way. Everyone doesn't really play through top lane unless they have Canna, basically. So actually, he's sort of now, I think, in the perfect spot. If you only have him as the tertiary carry, now all these hijinks actually can fucking work. They can be like a feather in your cap. You don't have to carry every game, but it means that anytime you can get a weird fearless edge, that is actually extra, a sort of an extra weapon for people like Melzet and people who in the rest of the team in terms of what people have to ban. There's another thing. Players like this, I think, are always underrated in the sense that in a big BO5, they are going to occasionally just draw a specific ban in one game that normally your third best lane is not going to get that. Their all bans are all going to the mid and the ADC in the analogy of another team like that. So that in itself, having those pocket picks does help. The one that this year that I think he's really done a good job on is actually bringing the fucking Aurora. Whenever I always watch that in all the other regions as well, the mid laners carry on it. This guy's actually done a decent job. I've seen a lot of people try that top lane, mate, and a lot of people have fucking failed it. And it looked sometimes like it was just because of failures that people picked it, because a lot of people don't have a wide champion pool. We'll get to you later, Oscarinin, but whatever. I think this guy actually did a decent job. He has shown that he's not as great as them, but he does deserve to go in that category of the old school top laners, Soaz, Wonder, where they can bring some shit you've never seen them play before. You haven't even seen them use on the ladder, but they might actually have like an angle on how to use it in this one matchup. They might not be the best on it, but they'll make it work. So I do think that's actually valuable. And I agree that the thing you said about the win rate of which games MCOY win is mad underrated, mate. Because I'll guarantee you that it'll be the same in BO5 play as you get in NBA and NHL and stuff, where you have best of 7 series. There's a famous stat that says like the team that wins game 1 wins like the whole series like 75% of the time. So I'll guarantee it's the same in BO5s in League. So the idea of the team by default, pretty much, it's true, just always loses game 1, but then wins the BO5. That's insanely clutch. And yeah, I've got to give it to this guy because I don't think he's the best top player in the league. I think he's levels below Canna. I think Broken Blade's way better than him. But he does bring something to his team, and being clutch, especially obviously in a playoff setting, is actually way more valuable than people realise. And sometimes, the old, like, better to be lucky than good. It's sometimes better to be clutch than good. It just is. Like, because that one game that you win in a game 5 might be more important than being better over the whole series and having the moral victory that you were the better. Like, put it this way, if upset goes, yeah, but I played great and all that, who gives a fuck, mate? No one cares, you lost. It doesn't matter. I'd rather be the guy who clutched out on game 5. So, no, I think he killed it. I also do think specifically, if you want to talk about, aside from Canna, Broken Blade, maybe Nakanako's better than him, maybe has a better scene. I don't even know. That's debatable, by the way. And I'll say this right now. You have to go to a time machine to pass splits before Oscarinin better than Myrwn. Like, Myrwn clowned Oscarinin in. He looked fucking stupid. So, no, I agree. He's not someone we've highlighted very often. But actually, yeah, this week especially, he deserves his flowers.
No doubt about it. And
For
just
sure.
on top of that as well, it's just that extra sort of dimensionality that he brings to the team. Like, it's not just that he's clutch, but I really like what you were saying, Thorin, about him like being like the extra like feather in the cap, right? Now the team is firing on all cylinders. You actually have something else that can come in and just win you a sneaky game now and then, and it's a genuine threat. It's not something that is like, oh, this guy's just doing his own thing and it doesn't matter what he, if you look at MCOY, you don't go, oh, who cares what he picks, he's useless anyway. You go, oh, he actually could do us some real problems if we don't properly sort of skirt around him. And even if we do skirt around him, he might have something that he's been practicing we just don't know. And that is really useful to have, and I think adds to the resilience of MCOY in these series, because you're not just reliant on your mid bot actually firing better than the enemy mid bot. You do have these weird angles where sometimes Myrwn creates that like extra pressure that will win you a game. It might not even be his moment that is like the game decider. It's just this extra sort of edge that MCOY have that other teams don't have on top lane, Fnatic, which would make a really big difference in actually making it to Worlds and being a team that is dangerous.
By the way, when I clicked that button that you do on Gamepedia, where you're looking at all the champions played in the split, and you can click all the games that were played and it'll list them all for you, I got really sad when I saw that it's all top lane in LEC for Aurora. Boys, this is like one of the fucking best carry. If I put Knight or Trophy on this, they'll blow your mind, boys. Here's where I want everyone to stop ever having those gap conversations. You don't get to have it is the gap closing conversation until we can even pilot the motherfucking champions in the game. Like, how many years have we had it where, like, Westerners could never play top lane Jace? They can never play Nidalee jungle. Now we've got Auroras. What, you can't play mid lane Aurora? The whole league just, sorry, doesn't work for us. Like, well, in that case, you are going to have a really fucking bad time when you play against Knight and Trophy. I'm telling you right now, like, they're going to cook your ass, bro. So sadly, another one of those bomber moments where I get the black pill and realise, actually that G2 team is 5 years ago now, and I need a time machine to watch that again. Oh well, time to
I will say though,
pretend this is good. Go on.
In favor. One more thing in favor of Myrwn though is the thing that he could play. So obviously we mentioned Aurora, but also his Akali is like sneakily good.
Okay.
Like his Gwen has been his bread and butter. It's just Mad Lions Koi have struggled to play around Gwen properly for like the last 2 years. They're kind of getting it now, but Myrwn has never been bad on Gwen. It's just like his team has been bad on Gwen. That's why his win rate is so low. But his Akali, like people forget, he like hard carried at MSI, I think. Let me just check. Yeah, it was at MSI against BLG. He had like a really hard carry Akali performance against BLG. So it shows that he's not just picking these champions against like against kind of the weaker top lane pool in LEC, he can play them internationally as well. And I think that's not to be underestimated for sure.
Okay, right, Peter, what is your good point?
So my good point for this week is GX.
I haven't said that many times, but go for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's true. I haven't said that many times, except to praise Gilotto. But I'm not going to praise Gilotto this week. I'm going to praise Noah, who is somebody who I've literally never praised on this entire show. Right? Like, Noah had a really incredible performance. He has his chance now to get revenge on Fnatic, which will be really, really a banger. I worry a little bit about how things will go if it goes to Game 5. But, let's be clear, against BDS, I think Ice is a pretty decent player, and he basically made fun of him in that series. And I'm not just going to say no, I'm also going to, since I've got the opportunity, I'm going to say Isma as well. Like, Isma here, this is a guy passed over multiple times for multiple teams, and he's playing against Bukada, who is like the highest buyout for like a jungler in Western history, in European history, and he just like made him look like he doesn't belong at LEC level, and I'm sure Bukada's a really, really nice guy. But for Isma, who is a guy who was basically clowned on for his entirety of his time on SK, to have a playoff performance like this was really, really impressive. And I think it's going to make the GX Fnatic series, if Isma can like play at this level into Fnatic have literally zero chance to win. I mean, it's rough for BDS. We spoke about BDS and what BDS losing this series will mean in the long term. And this is GX sending a message. This is GX saying you fucked up big time this year. We had a roster that we believed in. We signed people even though the community didn't rate them that highly. And we've kept the roster together, and we've kept playing the same way as we've always have. And we've just improved step by step by step. And now they're in a really great position to go to Worlds because Fnatic don't look good, KC don't look good, and GX have already had a really, really good series against Vitality, So it's in their hands, and I think that's because Noah's glow up, and especially Isma. Like, Isma has improved a lot, and I put part of that on Isma. I also put a lot of that on Gilotto as well. So, so good job to GX for their step up, as the year's gone on.
Where are you at on GX?
I'm pretty. I mean, I don't know if I'm as hyped as Peter is on them. I know they're supposed to be like the scrim gods of LEC. I mean, I know that a lot of good components went into building this roster, and I feel like you can really see that. There's a lot of things they've been working on behind the scenes that are kind of coming together in the way this roster was constructed. The fact Jackie's was brought through and basically tutored by Nico and others for a long period of time to sort of take his, of course, inherent very high skill level up to LEC level and beyond. So you actually look at that and feel like, oh, that's a dangerous carry, rather than just, oh, it's a low budget mid lane signing, which some people thought he might be at the beginning. Similarly with Lot, again, kind of someone, I know he played in LFL before, but he went very quickly from TCL Academy to LFL to LEC. Someone who I think everyone knew had a very high skill ceiling, but GX were the team that actually pulled the trigger on him because they believed in his potential. Similarly, though, they weren't just looking at players coming up; they were looking at players who were coming down, who are still very, very good, right? So this is where I think the Noah Jun signing, for example, did make a lot of sense. They were an inherent good partnership that had already had a pretty proven high level of being able to win in LEC, and they got that on kind of a bargain. Right, like because they were being released from Fnatic, and I think that it just showed there was a lot of well-considered, well-integrated systems, well-balanced decision-making coming together in the construction of this GX roster. But beyond that, it's also then come together actually on the Rift. So I wouldn't go as far as saying Fnatic has no chance. I think
He means if they play like peak level, though. That's what he meant as the like qualifier.
Maybe yes,
I mean,
but
Isma negates Razor, basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm just saying I wouldn't necessarily go that far. I think that would actually be a really contested and quite interesting series, probably anyway. But the fact that we're sat here and thinking, well, GX could definitely take that series versus Fnatic, I think it's such a good sign for the org. I'm actually really happy that it paid off for them because I think they trusted a lot in themselves this year. They banked on what they thought was correct, and it paid off for them, and they've stuck with it, which is what you want to see from an organization. So.
I'll start with the specific angle you took of the Noah angle, because obviously I'm known to be a critic of Noah. But this is where people always miss that there's always context to if I think somebody is good or bad. It's never an absolute statement. Like, the obvious angle I have is this: you are a Korean import to a Western region. In my opinion, you're supposed to be one of the best. Otherwise, why are you here? Why didn't someone pick just someone from the region? Why didn't someone waste an import? So if you come, and then also, by the way, he was in Fnatic. If you're in Fnatic, if you're in a major carry role and you're in Fnatic, you need to be at least top 3 in your role. The guy, if you are anything below that, I'm sorry, you're probably below par for Fnatic. We'd have the same conversation, and they do on every fucking podcast, by the way, about all the Man United players in football. The question isn't, are you a good football player or did you play okay now? The question is, do you meet the standard of expectation people have for Manchester United? And if you aren't there, you can sometimes even actually be good, by the way, and some people will still flame you because that is the nature of the culture of the club. So I would say his problem was, and also, not only did he actually kind of wither on the vine in Fnatic, but worse than that, he showed constant red flags that he was mentally losing it while he was in that position. Whereas the difference is, as you've seen when he's been in GX, this is why it was actually a very shrewd signing to take the whole bot lane, which did work together in Fnatic, and bring it to a GX, because the expectations are ratcheted way down. Like now, the difference, if you were to do Peter's concept of like shadow boxing them against Fnatic, is if they lose against Fnatic, that's not the end of the world. They're not in the BDS position where they're going to get flamed. It's not that bad, actually, if this team doesn't make Worlds. People do think there's 4 rosters that are better, that are supposed to make it. But I'll tell you what, there's an outside chance they do win that series. And if they do, not only does GX and Kyoto get mad props, people like Noah will get mad props. And as you say, obviously, just on some like emotional level, it would be enormous to beat fucking Fnatic themselves, the org that didn't want you, and then to beat them, go to Worlds without them. That would be a big fucking deal. So what were you going to say, Torok? I can tell you one jump.
Yeah, I mean, like bursting, because it just reminds me of like I mean, it's a very football reference, so a lot of people watching this won't get it. But Grealish at Everton now, he's moved from Man City where the expectation was so high for him. Maybe he had a decent start, but withered on the vine a bit as time went on. Yeah. And now he literally, in his first month, back at a club that was slightly lower expectation, but he still has that sort of inherent skill. It got Premier League Player of the Month, I believe, for August, right? And he's been having incredible performances. And I think when you get into that position as Noah, it just emphasizes your point, Thorin, really, that like the changing club is only been a huge benefit to him and Jun. And it just seems like a perfect marriage, really.
And just also seems like
the one thing that still scares me, though, is that I remember the Koi series, because I think GX were better than Koi in their series against Koi, but they kind of like choked it, a bit. When they were one game away from being in upper bracket, like this could be Koi just being incredibly clutch, or it could also be GX, like they get to within one game, and I want to see what happens when they're 2-1 up against Fnatic. Surely they won't be 2-0 up against Fnatic. Like if they get 2-1 up, can they close the series? That I still have the slight question in the back of my mind. But definitely, if they play without fear and without stress, I think they've got like a really good chance. But that's the only qualifier I put in. Sorry.
And I also think some of the credit also has to go to Kyoto for how he's managed to work Noah back into position. And also, similarly, I'll segue that into, I do give a lot of the credit for the ISMA globe to Kyoto. Like, this guy's been in a bunch of different teams, very mixed results. Times he's been exposed. Kyoto seems like the ISMA whisperer, mate. He's figured out whatever this guy lacked or whatever direction he needed, and he's helped provide it. And suddenly it's meaning that a player that I don't think is even close to a top 4 jungler in the league has an opportunity, though, to actually beat players that are in that category and actually not be immediately a liability against them. So, yeah, I mean, there's one of those ones where people are going to forget this guy used to be on SK Gaming and was an also run. No one gave a fuck. In fact, a lot of people probably wanted him out of the league and thought he was trash. So I think, actually, again, that's another like reclaimed piece that other people maybe didn't want, but you've made it work in your squad. The only thing is, though, that is where Peter is just an eternal optimist. That whole if he can neutralise Razork in a whole best of 5, right? Obvious secondary questions I have is, in this reality, is water, fire, is up, down, what the fuck's going on over there? Did actually did Kennedy not get shot and he had did the Soviet Union not happen? I don't know, Peter. This reality sounds amazing. It's like an episode of Sliders from back in the 90s, but in our reality, I feel like your if there is doing more hard carrying than fucking Isma's going to have to win this game, mate. If Isma can by the way, not even just do slightly better, neutralise Razork, Mate, Razork is going to tear this motherfucker apart. Especially because here's my problem. I think for Isma, you almost have to walk a tightrope. You have to be perfect the whole game. You probably have to get ahead early and match him the whole time. If Razork ever gets one of those leads on you that he throws against the G2s of the world, or MKoys, I don't know that he's throwing it against you, Isma. That's my problem, mate. And even if he does throw it, can you catch it? That's the question. Can you catch the fucking throw, or does it come back like a boomerang and he just keeps to throw it again? Pretty sweet. Fnatic has been shambolic enough. I could believe they could lose games and make this close. I think they'll still beat GX. But that's also why for GX, the expectations are everything. I think GX, look, their problem is they still haven't escaped the event horizon of all the Kyoto comments about G2. So people still remember that at the beginning of the year, even though I'm sorry, on paper their roster did not look top 3 or anything like that, but we all heard the hype that in scrims they're the best scrim team and they're winning and they're beating G2, and you saw a few of their players are good players. If Jackie's player's awesome and they've got this bot lane. But the problem I always had was, realistically, you're not really supposed to be top 4 if you're GX. Even if you would, you'd be 4th. So that would, by the way, that would mean you'd miss Worlds anyway. So I actually think they're in a decent spot, but for me, they're a gatekeeper team. I actually think that the 2 gatekeepers of our league is GX and Fnatic, and it goes like this. GX keeps all the trash out of their gate, and then Fnatic just lets all the elite teams who can win the league go through. That's what those 2 gatekeepers do. So the question is, are the gates that close? I don't know. I think there's a tiny distance between the 2 gates, but we'll see. We'll see.
I think that's fair. I think just one final thing on Giotto, which is that people often forget, he has a lot of lingering negativity around him because when he's been on super teams, sometimes the super teams have underperformed, right? Like the TL,
most notorious one, yeah.
The TL.
One of the most expensive teams of all time with born winners on it across the board, yeah.
Exactly. But whenever he's been on these up and coming teams, he's always overperformed.
Yep.
Right? People forget.
By the way, the same story with Immortals.
In LCS on Immortals.
In LCS, Peter, you can maybe speak to this. Exactly. The story goes, it was the same thing there with the scrim team, right? That was shocking all the big logs, right?
Yeah, but I mean, this was a team that had Ray. I'm going to just read the roster. It was Revenge, Xerxes, Insanity, Raze, and Destiny. And they were one round from 1 round and then upper bracket, from going to Worlds that year with those 5 players. And also he's been really close with teams like Schalke and things like this, right? And way back in the day, And GX, I would say, is in a similar role to those kind of teams. So I don't even think the negative record against Giotto applies in this situation. This is exactly the type of org that he has always overperformed with, right? And I think that, like you said, he deserves a lot of credit for the work that he's helped GX with this year, for sure.
And if I may as well, because I think this is really useful sort of color for people who might not understand this as well. But Giotto also took over Giants in the Superliga. I could be completely wrong, but I believe I remember correctly. At one point, he was working in Superliga. I think it might have been after TL, and he came back to Europe or something like this. It
was Heretics, isn't it? Am I wrong on this?
No. It was. I'm
he also
sure
did GX as well. Fair enough. I'll look it up. But
first, but it was Giants at the time,
right.
And then he went on to Heretics. But one thing that I think is really key in that is at the time when he was sort of reeling from, I guess, coming back from North America, and I'm sure he had a bunch of other stuff going on as well that I don't know about, but it just looked like he was going through a transitionary period, essentially. The team that reached out and actually took him and put him on what was a relatively stable full-time commitment at the time was Giants, right? And so this is clearly an org, going from the management side of things, at least just looking from the outside in, that actually valued his skill before, put him on their academy in the past, showing, hey, we really value you as a coach, and that set the ground for this year eventually, where he came in and actually ran their project for them. It's not just the coaches coming in and posed his vision, which is obviously great. I think it's really good that he's getting this influence, but it shows the sort of power of having a streamlined management, coach, player system within an org, where they're actually, they all sort of are singing from the same hymn sheet, rather than being at odds with each other. And it clearly shows that this is basically a play that GX or Giants at the time might have been banking on for the future or investing on. It's an investment from the past that's paying dividends now, by actually having this system, which is quite interesting.
Fair enough.
And behind the scenes, he did a really, really good job on Heretics as well. I mean, I'm not going to go over every specific thing he did, right? But he was on Heretics in that summer and took them to top 4 of EU Masters and won Spanish League. So he did a legitimately great job behind the scenes.
This is one of the rare weeks where, because I pick my topics after these guys to fill out the show, and somehow everyone's left this one. I'm going to put as my good a team called G2. The fuck, no one's picked that. Like, G2 just looks awesome. Like, if G2 looks right now like they will win the LEC, maybe even at a canter at this rate, by the way. They're almost certainly going to be in the final, I think. I think they're going to beat MCOI. Depends who they face there afterwards. And then, lastly, I'll just throw this out there. They didn't win a split this year. They were in all the finals, but they didn't win. And so, actually, for me, it would not only be awesome for the LEC that finally they win, but they've sort of powered up as the splits have gone on. And by the way, I do think they've powered up. Like, I think you have seen people like Skewmon become more and more integrated. Broken Blades level's gone up over the year. People like Lavrov's still not anywhere close to what Mickey X used to be, but he's better than he was at the beginning. Like, he's sort of integrated to some degree. Caps' level's gone up a little bit. I feel like if you're a G2 fan or a G2 player and coach and stuff, this is, look, you wanted to win before, but you've gotten to where you needed to be when it mattered the most. Like, it looks to me like you will win LEC and you will go to Worlds, and you've even got like your draft fixed, macro. Oh, it's like across the board. And I also have to say, I guess I have to put some of this credit on the coaching stuff. Like, it looks like they had their fucking work cut out for them, but they've done a good job over the year. I can see differences and improvements, whereas there are other teams that get worse or stay the same. So I think it's an easy one. I'm taking G2 as my good for this one. What do you think, Torok?
Oh, and it's one I can definitely get behind. I just really wanted to pick Myrwn because it's like more specific, and I don't think he often gets his flowers. But I mean, G2 for sure. They've been in that lovely position actually, which I think teams quite like to occupy. Although it has its downsides because you're not actually winning the split, where you've been finishing in the finals, you've been finishing high, but you've not been quite winning. And it's a really great position to be in when you're trying to find that extra level and that extra little bit of improvement, because you see it all the time where. But this team that is maybe in second or third or is always in the upper bracket but isn't actually winning, by the end of the year they kind of find that just a little bit more form, they find that little bit more edge, they have that little bit more hunger potentially because they've not been able to win the split so far, and they've not really be able to show how good they are on sort of when it really counts. And actually they sort of cruise into that beautiful little position where it's the end of summer, everything's coming together, we really have a chance this time, we know how we want to play, and they've put in maybe a bit more work than some of the other teams because they didn't necessarily find what works for them in officials, and so they had to fight that little bit harder for it, which meant they find that little bit more growth. And I think that's what we've seen from G2. All of their players have clearly put in the effort, they've found the way that now works for them, and it sort of seems inevitable that they're going to cruise to sort of this victory in summer, which isn't something you'd necessarily have said of this team just from a raw performance basis in winter and spring. But you just look at them and you're like, wow, this team looks really cohesive, this team looks dangerous. It's a team that you look at, and if you're prepping for them, even as Koi or whoever it is, it's like, well, where are we going to swing? Where is our edge, or do we just have to be really good on the day? And when you're looking at a team like that, it's usually a good sign for them that they're going to go very, very far. So yeah, no, I can get behind the plus.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big plus for G2 is how much better Skewmon and Labrov look compared to past splits. I think that's where the credit. I mean, for the team, for the org or the coaching staff, or a combination of the players and things. That's where the big thing has come, because let's be clear, G2. If G2 comes second the split, it will be one of the worst performances for G2 like in the history of G2, to come second 3 times in a row, right? So in order to kind of like salvage their year domestically, they kind of had to win the split, right? So I like that how focused they appear to be, and I like how ruthless they are, right? Like, I think in the LEC sometimes we're not like our top teams are not ruthless enough. They joke around a bit too much, and like they don't just like put teams to the sword, right? And I think this is the thing that I've really liked about G2 this year. Like this split, sorry. It's not that they're winning. It's not that their players are playing well. It's that their focus in winning situations, they're almost never letting the game slip into, Clown Fiesta territory. They're just like, they've been 2 games, I think, that I remember over the course of the entire split. But like every other, like the other 9 or 10 wins that they have this split has literally just been crush you, right? Don't even let you think about coming back into this game. And I think that's where the credit goes. So G2, obviously, I'm going to be supporting Koi against them, but I mean, this team looks scary, and I think they have to be the favorites for the championship right now. But I would have said they were the favorites in spring too, and we saw what happened in spring. So let's go and see how things go. But yeah, Labrov a little bit, but Skewmon especially, like those guys tuning up means that there's nowhere that you can attack on G2 right now. And that is that's scary for the rest of the league, is what I would say.
This is also why, even though it was straight box office, fire, heat rock, that Giotto G2 comment, that's why it was also so silly and high risk. Because you didn't make a statement for that split. Like, if you'd have said they won't be at first stand, they won't win LEC, you might have had a chance at that. The idea they wouldn't make Worlds, what you're saying is they won't even be top 3 a billion months from now when they've gone through 3 whole splits. Like, mate, you're just betting against yourself there. Like, think about all the coaches that, by the way, they're even G2, they could have brought someone in after a split. Like, that bet just wasn't a very good one because it might have made sense at the time at the beginning of winter, but there's just too much can happen from then. So it's why, look, the one angle that it's good is you are trying to do a Hail Mary. Like, if it had worked, it'd be the most genius call of all time and you'd get to lord it over everyone. But you made it too high stakes. You should have just made it more reasonable stakes, you know. Or you could have just said, you could have just said G2 sucks in scrims right now. That would have even been accurate. That would have actually been true back then. But whatever. Listen, I see what you were going for. I respect the game. It's all good.
We wouldn't be talking about it now. That's
also true. Yeah. To be fair, that actually did carry the GX narrative for like a split and a half, true. So, no, I always do say, in that sense, that's why people say that comment, like, there's no bad publicity. Because in a weird way, like, it's true. That became half of the excitement while we're waiting for GX to get good enough to actually fucking win the game for split and a half. So, yeah, it's true. Right, okay. Let's move on then, boys. What is bad right now, Torok?
Oscarinin is the topic I want to bring up, and I'm sure it's not a particularly uncontroversial one, but the best way to frame it is in line with the Manchester United positioning earlier, I think. When you're on Fnatic, you're expected to be one of the best and most threatening top laners in the league. You're meant to add that extra dimension to the team that is going to give them that cutting edge to go to Worlds and actually be a dangerous team, because Fnatic's end goal, at least the way they project it to their fan base and the way the org is positioned as like an elite performance team, is to not only win win in Europe, but to do very well at Worlds and have that potential to beat the Asian teams. The problem I see with Oscarinin is he's actually a really good player. I don't want to make this out like I'm just throwing him in the trash and say, you know, he should never be in the LEC. If he was in the same position on, let's say, for example, GX, he would be, you know, you could be praising him. You could say, look, this guy's a very reasonable top laner who's doing a lot of good things for his team. But he still doesn't bring that extra, that sort of separation between, let's say, the good and the very best. And my problem with Oscarinin is I feel like he's always just been good. Of course, he has his high moments. I mean, I even saw in the series, he had some very nice, like, intricate, I think it was a really nice, intricate Cyan interrupt over, like, a Drake pit wall, where I was like, I can see why you're here. But the problem is when you look at his potential that maybe I think Fnatic were banking on, and you look at actually what he's delivered over the course of his time on the organization, you do maybe start to wonder if you're a Fnatic fan or somebody who's, you know, looking to make the team go that little bit further, if he's really the person to be doing it for you. That's not to say he can't come in and have a really good series versus GX, because he is a good player. But, you know, you're always hoping for your top laner and every player on Fnatic or G2 to be that elite player. And I don't think we've seen that as consistently as we need to from Oscarinin for him really to be, I guess, getting that praise anymore. And also, I think he's run out of road to prove it. Because he's been there for so long. It's not like he's been there just for a year and he's like the new hype rookie coming up. He's been there for ages. And there comes a point where you've just got to say, look, we still believe in your potential, but your potential is not at this club. You know, we need somebody who's delivering now. And you know, I would love to see him deliver actually, because I think he has that ceiling. It's just a ceiling that's not reached very often. And so I could labor this point more, but I think that's really it on the Oscarinin front. And yeah, I think it leaves open a lot of questions for Fnatic next year, because he's obviously been their sort of kind of a franchise player for them at this point. So that's where he's at. I guess I can contrast it a little bit, right? When you're looking at Broken Blade or even Myrwn, or if you go across the pond and you think of like Gatgos, for example, on FlyQuest, I think that's a really interesting comparison. These are the rookies that are bringing that edge, that sort of scariness. And when you just look at Oscarinin, he doesn't bring that same. He doesn't have that fear factor attached to him of I can actually win you a game. And so if I was Fnatic, for example, I mean, everyone, I don't know if everyone knew. I think a lot of people knew Gatgos was insane as a rookie. I recommended him to GX when I was rebuilding the academy setup as well. It was between him and Slayer for the top lane position, because we want those high potential, dangerous rookies. and who obviously you want to eventually build into your main team. And I wonder if they maybe missed the boat on him because he was a good European rookie. He would have signed behind Oscarinin. You could have done the same thing that FlyQuest are doing right now between Brippo and Gatgos on Fnatic. I think you could have 100% justified that as a really smart, intelligent move for the future. And they missed that boat. And it's like, well, when's the next hyper talent going to arrive? It's that's sort of where I see it.
Yeah, I agree with you. So sorry about that. I had to pick up the door, but I heard your point in detail. And basically what I would say is that the problem with Oscar is that often, as a series goes on, he's like taking less and less responsibility in the games, right?
Yeah,
this is not like a Poby like upset issue, right? This is like he was playing with Humanoid for 2 years, right? And you would see as the series went on and on and on, Humanoid would get more and more resources, or like Upset and Poby would get more and more resources. And this is partly on them wanting more resources, but it's also partly on Oscar just sacrificing more and more and more. He's less willing to push out a side lane, because he might flip it and it turns out in a bad situation. So he's perma grouping all the time. He's not even properly playing side lanes, and we know he can play the side lanes because if it's game one of a series or if it's like an irrelevant series that doesn't matter against some team that Fnatic think that they're going to beat, he'll just do it. He'll just go to the side lane, he'll flip it, and he won't care if he makes a mistake. But somebody who is less and less willing to take risks as the series goes on and gets to crunch time is really, really scary, because what it essentially means is he's giving up responsibility to be the person to win you the game, right? He just doesn't want to lose the game. And ironically, that actually ends up in losing the game, right? Because he goes 120 CS down to like no win, right? In a matchup which is supposed to be Renekton favored, right? And this is I think, number one, that's a problem. Also, number two, I think time is against him now. He literally, Fnatic, for him to stay on Fnatic, I think Fnatic literally have to go to Worlds, and he literally has to dominate an Eastern top laner, right? At Worlds. I don't think it's even enough for him to go to Worlds and be fine, because the crop of top lane talent that's coming up next split is like crazy. There's Tracyn, who's sitting there on Heretics. There's Empiros. There's Tracyn. Who's the guy I'm thinking? The Mainta, on KCB. There's a lot of very, very good top lane talent. And it's like, there was the year with like Nemesis, Humanoid, Abadage, Larson, right? When they all came up together, where that was like the bumper mid lane class, and you had to get one of those mid laners. For the LEC next split, it's like kind of the bumper top lane class. We've had a little bit like Knack and Lot went up 1 year early, but they were all those guys all together, like pushing them in ERLs, making each other really, really good. And the tail end of those class, like if you don't pick up a rookie this year, you're probably not picking up a rookie like long term, right? You're either gonna get like Knack or Carlson if it doesn't work out, or you're gonna get like the fifth option or somebody like this. So really, that's the thing which works really, really hard against Oscar right now. So yeah, so he time is really, really ticking. But the problem is that I'm scared about his willingness to like step up and say, pay attention to me, like play around me. And I think it's going to be hard for him to even hard carry a game, because even if he's getting leads, he's just not making the game around him. And then the other top laner just scales into the game just fine. So that's what scares me. But yeah, I don't think he's like, ironically, just pure micro, like pure like clicking buttons, right? I think he's actually slightly better than Myrwn. I take Myrwn every single time, right? For champion pool, I take him for like creativity, I take him for clutch. But like if you're purely talking solo queue, 1v1, just clicking buttons, no jungle, no support roams, I think he's actually like got slightly better hands. But yeah, like everything else, this shows why hands are not the be all and end all, because there's no question which is the better top lane, right?
The conversation around Oscarinin is basically just the top lane version of the Noah discussion, just remixed. It's like, so he came in, he had an initial period where it looked, hey, this could be a prospect, just like Noah did, but then it just hasn't manifested. You haven't been able to be a Fnatic carry or a Fnatic top laner in that sense. And in fact, you even look to tie into what you were just saying at the end there, they've even at this point in time, it's not even benefiting him aside from getting the salary and being on Fnatic and you could potentially get carried. Like, he's not even getting to show his game off. Like, if you think about it, when he joined Fnatic, they initially had Reckless and Humanoid. Then they had Noah, who looked awesome coming in, and Humanoid. Now they have Upset Humanoid, and now Upset and Pup. Like, I'm sorry, you're never going to get catered to. Of those three, you're always going to be last. You just are. And then also, mate, your jungler is the guy who's going fucking insane activity levels. He's not just going to camp your lane all day long. Like, I actually think for real, just like the Noah example, you should probably take that actual fucking path. The joke is you should be on GX next split. You know what I mean? Like, if he went to a GX, a Heretic, that sort of a level, BDS, Oscarinin could actually be a much better top laner, and he actually could help a team like that be better and climb closer to the top 3 and 4. So the reason why I also think it's fair to say this guy is not 17 and this is not his first year. I'm willing to play, and by the way, first of all, Scumon's played great this year, but I'm willing to play a lot of defense when a player that does badly internationally. So it's your first year, mate. You shouldn't even be at the international tournament. I'm sorry, you are basically at the end almost of year 3, Oscarinin. I don't know if you know this, mate. People's esports careers used to last 5 years before. Like, that's a lifetime. And if you're a team like Fnatic that hasn't won that entire time, that is also a lifetime. That's another reason, like the Manchester United example is there. People don't just want good players, mate. They want good players, and then they want championships, mate. So even if they think you're decent, and there's been splits where he was good, I actually think the sad thing about right now, by the way, is if you go back, actually, I think in spring he was pretty fucking good. He was all right in winter. I'll tell you another problem he's always had, though. I think he's always been a bit of a playoff choker. Like, I notice in the big playoff series, it always feels like he gets gradually worse as it goes on. The further you go, he gets a little bit worse. I do think he's got some sort of like a self-perception issue. I know what you mean on the one about playing against Myrwn. Another factor is because of the team he's been in, they basically very quickly identified he wasn't a strong laner and just abandoned him forever in that regard. Like, it doesn't look like they tried to develop that. Even in this team, the whole thing was like, look, we're obviously going to give all the resources to Upset. And Humanoid's Humanoid. He does whatever the fuck he wants. He's got $1 million contract, mate. You just figure out, you do what you can with the rest. See you, mate. Oh, Razok's not coming either. Enjoy, see ya. Like, the joke would be the only benefit, as far as I can tell, Oscarin's ever had from being on Fnatic is there were times earlier this year where, because you have Mickey X, you will actually get an insane support lane gank, which I always say, that's why Mickey X is our carrier. That shouldn't even be it. He thinks it's Daughter and he's the second jungler, mate. You maybe get the odd thing like that, but aside from that, all the resources go in the Upset barrel, mate, and you play on the other side of the map to him, so where do you think Razok's going to be? It isn't your lane. So I just don't think for either party it makes sense. Like, even though they're not out yet, for all we know, they win LEC. If they win LEC, mate, I doubt it's off Oscarinin being close to the best top laner. And then, just throw this out there, that's why the Myrwn one's the troubling one. Because, mate, if I go further than that, Canna is just fucking on another level than Oscarinin. And I even think Broken Blade deserves to be considered completely a much better player. Finally, another problem that you have if you're Oscarinin is this. You've never, because of the limitations that they've just sort of band-aided you to, you've never had to expand and be a complete top laner either. I always do think for top lane, there are very rare teams that will actually let the top laner be just a carry all the time. At the same time, most teams shouldn't only make you weak side. I know we do that a lot in Europe. I think the sign of a great carry player, great top laner, is you've got to have some element of both. Obviously, you're not going to probably be as good at both. Very rare people are. But you've got to have a bit of both. For me, in this team, they've always just said, right, Oscarinin, the weak side, and then you figure out the rest of the team. So I also just don't know, aside from being in Fnatic, what you get out of this, mate. Like, I don't think it works for both parties. I would just move on. And like we say about how many years he's had plenty of chances. No one's shortchanged him. He's had lots of teammate changes too. But if you are Fnatic, even though the fans go too far, it is true that your standard should be, we always make worlds, we're always contending for the championship. Ideally, at a positional level, each player has a chance to be the best in their role. Now, the problem is, if I look at these players now, the first one that I have to say doesn't have a chance to be the best in his role, probably Oscarinin. That's just unfortunately the nature of the team and how it's ended up. So, no, I think it's a totally fine one. I also do think it's not even, because we framed it quite carefully, we're not even saying he's a bad player. I agree. He certainly shouldn't be down in the RLs now and fucked off and be checker-ladded out of his world. But the problem is, I doubt you're ever going to play for Fnatic or G2 again, mate, or Carmine. I think you're probably going to spend the rest of your career in Heretics, GX, BDS, like, I hope you don't go to an SK. You shouldn't have to go that low, but that seems like the sort of range.
That's the key, isn't it, really? Like, I don't want to talk about it too much more, but you also just remind ourselves he had good performances at Worlds. From memory, I mean, I'm for sure he had them. The problem is that you don't, even if they're good performances, it's like if you imagine it like kind of a range, right? He might be up here doing like 60 or 70 versus some really good Eastern top laners, and sometimes he's at 30 or whatever, and he averages around 50, but it's never enough. It never breaks into that 80 range. So it's always, even if he's had a good performance versus very good top laners, you still come back to sort of that meme where it's like, come on, do something. And you need better than that if you're Fnatic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, Peter, what is your bad point?
So I'll parlay that into kind of my top pick, which was going to be about Fnatic macro. So actually, just on your Oscar point, just to wrap up the Oscar thing as well. Like he's had good performance. He had a good performance in the series. Like game 1, he hard carried the game with Aurora into it was Varus, I think. Yeah, it was Varus in the first game, right? He was destroyed Myrwn in that game, right? And then obviously he played insanely well game 1 and then just didn't show up for the rest of the series, right? And to me, this is a problem. Like, this is where you really see, for me, the loss of Humanoid on this Fnatic. Because let's be clear, Koi are never going to individually play this badly again, right? They were making like 3 to 4 unforced errors every single game in this series. Mainly, like sometimes Myrwn, sometimes Illuria, mainly Alvaro, who had a shocking series. Like, I don't think I've ever seen Alvaro have a worse series in a best of 5, right? And you still can't capitalize. And just to give the context on Alvaro, like I was speaking to, I saw from the Spanish Twitter that this was the first time, like the interview Alvaro gave was he's never played Bard before, and like he definitely looked like he hasn't played Bard before. Like he wasn't opening through sides. Like they messed up the 2v2. I don't know if that's a meme or anything, right? It's just what was said in the post game interview, right? And yeah, it like for me in a series like this, where the enemy team is inting, what you need is one of your solo laners to basically say, play into my side, then they're making mistakes. We don't need to go and get caught in the clown fiesta. Just play efficient League of Legends, push out our side waves, either try to cheat weak side waves or put pressure into our strong side, get somewhere in the map that is strong, get deep vision around, I mean, in this case, Humanoid would be saying, get deep vision around me, put the deep vision here, right? And then that's it. Right? But the problem with Fnatic, we spoke about Oscar in depth, right? About how he's basically skirting his responsibility, but Poby was also not really calling for deep vision. He was playing the sides fine, but they weren't getting anything off that pressure, right? What Poby was doing, push out the side and then go to mid lane. And then he would push outside, go to mid lane, get mid pressure, use that to go and get the vision. Instead of support jungle opening into Poby's lane, and then they get deep vision immediately on the first step, right? Without needing to transfer the pressure. It's almost like they're playing too upset or playing too mid wave in order to be able to have permission to go and play for risk, right? And the one thing that was really, really scary to me is that the one game. So obviously the first game Fnatic played decently, but the only other game they won was when Upset was on Twitch. And Upset on Twitch was able to essentially get that pressure, right? Like, I think he had a gank on Jojo early on in the game where he just walked through the lane as Twitch invisible, and he was able to, just him being on Twitch, applied the pressure to the side lane that they weren't getting otherwise, right? Because Upset would fog into side or, just go out of vision, and then you have to respect it as Twitch. Also, knowing Jojo, he's probably not played into Twitch that much before, so probably didn't really understand how to play into it. But to me, Fnatic's macro in this series, this is where you really see the loss of Humanoid, right? It's not in regular season. It's not in it's in the situations where opposing team is inting and you just don't know what to do against the other team to punish them properly. Right. And this, I think, is the story of Fnatic series, right? The story of Fnatic series is opposing team inting on the map and you're not able to punish them. And the only way you can win is in team fights. And team fights, they're never 100%, right? We've talked about Oscar in depth, but I put this on Poby a bit. The kind of person that disappointed me the most, though, is kind of Mickey in this series. Because, I don't think he was worse than Alvaro, but these are series where I've seen him in the past when he's playing with Caps, or when he's playing with Humanoid, or when even he was playing with, Senkrix and Wonder, back in the day. He would never fail to be using side lane priority to play the game faster, right? And this is kind of, it's weird because this Fnatic series, again, every time Poby got priority in the side lane, it was never to go and push out one side, base, and then play the other side. It's always push outside, go and get your control, then go into mid, and then get your control through mid, which fine way to play the game, very, very slow, not punishing situations where you should. Not trying to force mistakes, right? I don't know what Fnatic do in their later series, because let's be clear, they're not going to out team fight KC. KC are god tier team fighters, right? So if you're in a situation where you need to out team fight KC because you can't close them out through playing three lanes properly, it's going to be really ugly.
Here's what I would do.
That's my bad point.
If I was Fnatic, half of my prep when I get to the KC series is I would get like a whole sleeper network of all my spies in the industry. And all I need is someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows Vladdy. And all I need is get in this motherfucker's ear now, because all we have to do is he's right on it's a powder keg, guys. All we need is that little match to spark. In comes Niski. There's our chance right there, boys. Worlds. Come on, we're going to Worlds. Listen, that's probably not the best actual real plan, but it would work. Listen, right now, KC's that close to fucking just blown up completely, mate. So it's a wild one, isn't it? On this topic, yeah, by the way, that was it. You have to remember, Peter segued that from here. So actually, I want your take now, Torok. What do you think of this aspect of...
No, it's a really nice... It's a really nice way to sequence on from the Oscar discussion as well, because it's something that's like plagues a lot of teams. It's plagued teams I've coached as well, for the record. It's not something that I've been immune from, but it's small map syndrome, where essentially you get forced into playing one way. There is no other way out. Your band-aids are layered on band-aids are layered on band-aids, and the entire machine somehow moves forward so long as it isn't poked in the wrong place. But the second it's poked in the wrong place, it all collapses. And the problem is trying to shuffle that like makeshift vehicle through a best of 5 series successfully, even if it's got a lot of good individual components. The fact it can sort of collapse at any given second is a very scary business. It's like trying to drive around a NASCAR track like 40 times, but the car could fall apart on any one of the laps, right? It's like it might be the fastest car there, but it can also just end up, like Lightning McQueen at some point, crashing off and never driving again, right? And I think that's a little bit of what Fnatic look like. They clearly have extremely strong components, on the team. There's no doubt about that. When even if you look at Razork and Upset, you'd still put them in the sort of cutting edge. This is a really good player in Europe category, right? And that's not to necessarily put the other three so much down, but just be really clear with Upset and Razork, that's where they are. The thing is if you can only play through Razork and Upset, and you're only quite predictably playing through mid and playing a very slow AD carry focused game, which Poby fits into that game plan, which is why the team is presumably more synergistic, right? Because he fits into the all eggs in the Upset Razork basket game plan and does a good job of it. The problem is if that game plan does not work, or if it's not, it's a limited game plan at the end of the day. And I think that's what Peter was trying to say. When you have a humanoid who can actually really make side lanes a dangerous place, when you have a Myrwn or a Kana who can make side lanes a dangerous place, these people, they have that inherent value of creating variation in the team. They create new ways, new dimensions to play. They make your map very big every single game. And the problem is Fnatic don't have that. Fnatic are Upset Razork, please get me to the finish line, and don't fall apart whilst you're doing it. And they might just be able to limp there, but it's not a nice way to get there for sure. You want to be walking in style. So
yeah.
By the way, on the idea, this was like not a very good series for either team. By the way, I agree. I actually think Koi. This is why I have a set of terminology I keep repeating, but people haven't picked up on it. Yeah, I need to influence everyone because this is a banger. What you have to do is, if we're going to use the logic of a team is throwing doesn't mean you lose the game. What? Because the other person has to catch it. That's what you have to think. So there's plenty of games, by the way, where I've seen top teams throw. I mean, fucking T1 just tried it against like D+. D+ could not catch the throw. They weren't capable actually or competent enough to catch it. That's the problem. The real problem with this series is, if you're looking at the bigger picture, you could just go, oh wait, Poby came. If you didn't watch the specifics of the games they split, you could go, well, MKOI are the reigning champions. They were at fucking MSI and EWC. Fnatic was at home. Fnatic's lost their most expensive player. They brought in this guy who was a failure in Korea and just an understudy, basically, in the Challenger League. They shouldn't be beating Fnatic. So if you saw 3-2, fucking hell, must have been a good series from Fnatic. Dog shit series. Like, the joke is that to even get to game 5, that's not even on them. Like, I don't even know how they did it. Like, MKOI gave up the free game, like you said on the first one. It's just the MKOI way, but there's not something to do with Fnatic. And then you get all the way through, and I agree on game 5, mate, MKOI are fucking incredible. They must actually be British. After you, sir. No, after you. No, after you, sir. I'd really rather if you went first. Like, they just couldn't fucking take the throws. it's crazy. The joke is, I didn't think Fnatic was going to win this series anyway, but I'm so blackpilled on how they lost it. It's like, mate, if you can't win that series, like, I'm not a biggest KC fan at the moment, but how am I supposed to conceive of a way you beat them in a BO5? Like, it just doesn't happen. It's like the Oscarinin thing before. I expect you to choke eventually. And by the way, in this series, I've got to say as well, there's a few other angles as well, which is, in this team, if you are my boy Upset, listen, they definitely play for you, mate. This isn't the team where it's like, oh, in KC, the bloody French players are doing whatever they're all playing for you in this team. So I will say, you had a pretty good series, but that's not what this team's about. You're in Fnatic, mate. This is about having like a legendary series, carrying it, and then going through. And now the conversation should be, ugly point is, yeah, Fnatic won, but how though? Look at the problem. It was Upset carrying them. No, you just had good games here. You just had good games in the series, but you weren't a monster. And you look across the board. This is why nobody likes Fnatic anymore, unfortunately, because it doesn't matter what you see in the regular split. It never shows up in the playoffs. And especially the big playoff matches. Like, here's the real problem here, guys. You've all seen them have playoff matches like in winter where they do good at times, but they all knew if you win this one playoff match as Worlds. And you could tell they fucking knew, mate. You can always tell when a Fnatic player knows there's pressure because they become half as good and they literally do things in the game where you think they like fucking face rolled the keyboard or something. Like some of the best players in our league, Razork, that's the other thing about this squad. Some of this ties to what they've done the whole year to me. Right? The Porpy angle, he looked way better than I expected in the regular split. That never showed up in the playoffs. It looked like he did get affected by pressure. It looked like those videos where he was making all those great comm calls. It didn't look like he was doing them in these games, mate. It looked like he got fucking nervous. It was squeaky bum time, as we say in the UK. Like, this guy just learned what playoffs are. Then you got the whole angle that is, if you have Razork and Mickey X, mate, you're not even supposed to get one of those players. You have both at the same time. Like, at the beginning of the year, that's why I thought this Fnatic was going to win everything. I was like, mate, I don't give a fuck how good Skewmon is. It's Skewmon and Labrov. And what have you even got, by the way? What, Yike and Targamas? And fucking, like, Elnara and Yoya, at least a good one. But aside from that, you should have the OP support jungle. And I have to say, I've watched every BO5 they've played this year. They have never had a whole BO5 where they both just played awesome like you think. And this team with those two players, I thought they were going to fucking dominate this league. Because I'm thinking to myself, mate, if you just have like 2 good games in a row from those guys, you're going to like 3-0 series and like be dominant over teams. And also, those are the players where you think Razork's going to get you to this point in the game in the lead, and then Mickix is going to make the cool back row win like he did in G2 and close the game. They never ever did any of that shit. Like, I wouldn't say they don't synergize, but somehow they don't function together at the same time. I've got to say, by the way, if you are Razork, it's getting really bad for you, mate, because no matter how good you are as a jungler, you have seemingly unfixable problems with other great players when you play with them. You're never quite all on the same page with them. And you're the fucking jungler, homie. Your whole game is to synergize with other people on the map to create unfair advantages. So I feel like if you're a Fnatic fan, I totally get why you're frustrated every split and why you're frustrated on this one too, because it never seems to improve, or if it does, it's always like it improves except when it matters. And then when it matters, all these problems come out again. It's why, unfortunately, even though I always have to go back to it, there is still something, whether it's the culture or the core of this team, there is something psychological that fucks this team up. It's not just draft problem, mistake in the macro, fucked up a team that did the wrong move. There's something psychologically that, like, I can tell they're beating themselves as much as essentially they hold themselves down while the other team beats them. That's what I would say about Fnatic. But it would still be totally top keck if they then beat Carmine Corp. Carmine Corp doesn't even go to Worlds. Stay off Twitter that day if you're French. I'll be a fucking nightmare, I'm telling you right now, mate. Especially all the upset ones. Oh, well, I wonder who was the one making them be 10th place last year. I'll be all over that shit, mate. It'll be outrageous, so just get ready for that. Obviously, delete this part of the video if they do, in fact, lose 3-0, though. We don't need to have that going on. No, I'm certainly not predicting it either. Okay, right, my bad point. I think this is an obvious one too. I've just got all the layups this week, boys. You know, I picked G2 as my good point. Think of the playoffs. Are you ready for my bad point? BDS? Fucking hell, this team sucks. Bro, this team sucks. Actually sucks. And the reason why that is insane is that matchup should actually have been a really close matchup. GX against BDS should be like a really competitive game. It should be about what player plays better on the day, what coach did a genius... No, sorry, that was a fucking whitewash, mate. That was literally just shit stomping them the whole fucking time. And they never ever were in this game. And the worst thing is, this isn't even some like, well, you know, BDS is other... You signed this fucking super expensive player as a Hail Mary to go to Worlds. That didn't work either. That didn't work either. That has not worked. And the squad has actually gotten worse every split. This is why that whole striker thing is really ugly, by the way. That whole thing where he got, it was announced he was extended for next year, but then he promised before playoffs, yeah, but the thing is, basically, like, unless I finish and go to Worlds, I'll tell them, don't give me that contract for next year. Well, listen, based on what's happening now, mate, you're going to be walking in their fucking office. Now, look, if I was there in the office, I would say decline it and tell him to stay, but you've set yourself in a bad scenario. And if you think all the way back, first of all, at the beginning of the year, your roster looked like it could be like third or fourth, mate. That actually looked like it could cook. Then you go to the winter split. They were actually in loads of those games, if everyone remembers. Those were like super close games. They threw a couple. Every split's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse. And this is just such a shit. It's such an ignominious end to the split. Look that up, foreigners. It just is the fucking worst way you could go out. Just whack. And, like, if I was a BDS fan now, I don't even know what you're praying for. I even agree with Peter, by the way. Like, mate, the one bright spot on BDS was fucking Ice. That guy just performed against everyone. Even he finally just was like, you know what, fuck it. When in Rome, yeah, phone this motherfucking send. Like, no gives a shit. Like, actually, this is so sad because what I hate projects. When people ask Peter, like you have, as a coach, like, give me like a lit runway on my project, give me a year or two, give me multiple splits, don't make me have to fire people after one split. When you get that, and then at the end of it all, the GM can go, well, all you did is get worse fucking results. What was that doing here? And in this case, by the way, I'm sorry, if I'm the GM, or maybe a striker himself, I'm going, why did we just spend all the money on the Buchanan guy now? Like, was that really the move? Was that really the Hail Mary that made our team work and we go to Worlds? Because I'm sorry, I never thought you would go to Worlds with that move anyway. But I definitely didn't see from that player what you saw in him, what you thought he would bring to your squad. So that's a flat out bad for me. I didn't even pick this for ugly. I think it's just bad. Because I do think on paper, you should be right there with GX. It should be you and GX should be the ones challenging. If it's Fnatic's the fourth team at the top four, you should be challenging them and threatening their world spot. If you're Fnatic at the moment, you would have loved it if BDS had fluked this fucking series. You'd be going to Worlds or so, or you'd be playing that KC series. So I have to say, just bad. BDS, bad. Thoughts, Torok?
I mean, there's not much else to say, isn't it? Like, as soon as as soon as you get to the BDS series, it's like I sleep. You're not even expecting anything, and that's the worst thing. It's not. There's no bang. It just goes out with a wet fart. You don't even care. Like, with the best will in the world, it's just a team that you're just not interested in, and they don't have an interesting component to them. I wish they did. They don't. They should actually have an interesting component. For example, Paris, has been an absolute flashbang player in the ERLs. He's been extremely dangerous, very, very good on the map, kind of Mickey X-esque in some ways with how he moves. Micro a bit separate, but is that type of player who can create real, genuine magic in games. But for some reason, and this isn't to say they didn't do it. I won't pretend that I've watched every BDS game from this year as well, so I can't really give a scathing review of them. But there's a reason why I didn't watch every one of their games, is because the ones I did watch it's
they were irrelevant. They really were.
Yeah, I mean, there's better things to do with my time. There's better things to do with their fans' time. It's just it's just not a point. And I mean, that's the sad part, really. But it's the honest truth. And they need to probably take a long look at what they really need to keep from this roster, because a lot of components of it need to go.
And I mean, I'll be honest, I have watched every BDS game of this year, and I've wasted hours of my life doing it. You've definitely come out ahead of this one, Tomek. Okay. What I would say, but the tragedy to me is Fleshy, right? I don't like comparing Fleshy and Paris in ERLs. Like, Paris was just better, right? But Fleshy's the one who's being allowed to play like Pyke in the game-winning game, for Vitality, and I feel like he's never really been in a position where he's been able to play the game. Right? First, he had to play with 113, who you're not you're babysitting 113, right? You're not like actually contributing to the game. It's like Link has had that situation with Hillsang, right? Like, and where you are the second. You're the second fiddle, right? You're not the guy who's determining what's going to happen, right? You're just following. And like, I feel this is the guy who I felt his progress has just been really, really rough this year, and I find it hard to blame him because I've just seen him play better, right? Like, I've just seen this guy play better. The Bukada situation, like, last night, KCB, like, the guy they replaced him with was Yukino from NA, right? And he had like he had one really bad game at the start, but he had like 3 really, really good games, right? To get KCB to over the they did win that game 5. I didn't see game 5 to the end, but I'm pretty sure that they won.
Yeah, they won
game 5.
I'm pretty sure.
They won game 5.
You're wrong,
Okay.
but
I mean,
they
they were like 5K up, and I was just like, okay, I'm going. But like you know, they brought in another guy who, you know, maybe this guy, you know, he's just come from NA, but you know, maybe he's somebody who now somebody you could have probably gotten for free, you know, at the end of the year instead of paying 200K instead of paying 200K mid split. You know, and this is my problem with BDS. I agree with you completely, Thorin. I think they've gotten worse, but all their players look fucking miserable. Like Rooster, you know, Rooster was a guy he was touted as somebody who was guaranteed to go LCK. Maybe not on the top team. Like, I mean, I think it was rumored that he could have maybe gone up. He could have maybe got promoted, but they brought in Zeus and, you know, obviously, right? But here he's come to Europe to kind of prove himself. Every single time you see him on camera, he looks like he's having the worst time of his life. You know, he literally looks like he would rather be anywhere else than playing for BDS. And you don't see. Like, I've seen.
By the way, I don't blame him in that sense, though, Peter. Here's the one thing people always miss about Korean imports to Europe. Mate, even if you're in the worst team and you're in LTA, you're in LA. You can go fucking, you're in nice weather. It's fucking Koreatown, Korea. Bro, this guy, I was almost in an LCK team. And now you're in Berlin, in the rain, with bad internet, and you're in fucking LEC, and everyone's speaking French around you. Fucking hell, mate. This guy's, he's suffering right now. God bless Rooster. Listen, mate, I'm with you, but I'd consider going home, you know, like fucking hell.
But I mean, I just say, like, compared to Heretics or even to SK, you know, we flamed SK a lot. SK is not very good, right? But like, those teams at least look like they have some life in them. You know?
That's true.
They at least look like.
But it is where there is a value in, even if you're shit, having a Kazi that makes it funny or brings some lightness to it. They don't have any of that in this team. They don't have anything in BDS.
But this team, just like when they start losing, especially in this series, like the thing I was watching with BDS is I was watching their player cams, because this is something I had in my mind from this is something I saw in regular season, and they, like, you just look at them and you know that they're done. Like, they just literally want to be literally anywhere else, and to me that is the scary thing, right? It's like, it's not that they lost. It's that they lost in a lifeless way where everyone clearly just wants to be literally anywhere else. And like they're just happy to be on vacation, right? To be frank. And, you know, this is a team, technically you still had a shot at Worlds, right? I think GX, who was playing that series with them, still thinks that they can go to Worlds, right? And yeah, I don't think BDS at any point in this series, I don't think BDS at any point after week 1 of the split thought that they could go to Worlds, right? And that's a problem, right?
Yeah, right, okay. Speaking of ugly things, now we will move on to the ugly category. So, Torok, what is ugly right now?
Yeah, so I want to talk about the state of the ERLs. I don't know if it's
no, go for it.
Exactly appropriate on an AC show, but I think it aligns because obviously they feed into each other and they overlap. I've been in the ERLs for a long time. For a little bit of background on me, I coached, and only English people get this. I was head coach in the UK League when I was 16 in 2018. I'm 23 now, so I've been in the ERLs for like 7 years, head coaching across all the different regions, and I've only ever seen it get more unhealthy. I mean, if we talk about the, if we talk about the state, I mean, maybe there was some peaks during COVID, for example, but I'm only talking the last like 3 to 4 years, let's say, right? I've just seen things fade over time, and I really don't like it. And it's something that really needs to be addressed by Riot, and I don't think Riot are present at all. I know they are trying to do like some things in different places, but really the groundwork of European sport is through all of these, national leagues, right? And then they come together and form the Champions League or whatever else it might be. And don't get me wrong, I mean, franchising was a decision for better or worse. I think you can make it the entire conversation about that, but I just want to talk about the state of play that we have now. We recently saw the news with Superliga, suspending like 52 of its employees or something like that on some kind of suspended work plan, for example. I'm not saying that's entirely due to Riot management of the ERLs or anything like that, but this is just some extra color that I think is very relevant for a lot of people who work in the ERLs and watch the ERLs and find it interesting. It's running on fumes. There's very little actual finance. There's very little actual support running through the system. And when there's just not enough to go around, you wonder when the entire body is going to collapse. by itself, essentially. I think we're really looking at a period of rapid transformation to part-time professionals, potentially people who compete and train only in the evening and work during the day, even in the major leagues. So, you know, if you're going to talk about actually this being a real talent pipeline and a place of vitality, which it should be, because there are people who watch all of the ERLs and find it maybe as compelling, if not more compelling than the LEC. Frankly, I think the LEC is a product that isn't in the best spot, whereas some of the ERLs actually have a lot more life to them. They have the life in terms of their unique character and their unique national identities. What they don't have life in is sustainability. And I don't know if that's an entirely accurate. You know, I'm sure there's more nuance to what I'm saying here, but I just wanted to paint the picture in as broad a term as possible. But I really want to see rapid seismic engagement from Riot with the ERLs to turn them into what should actually be like a really flourishing product. And instead, I think it's just been left almost put out to pasture. It's like there's one tweet a year where one Riot employee, I don't even know his name because I never see him again afterwards. Got no bad blood against him. I just never see him again. He does one tweet. Oh, how's the ERLs, guys? And then in the comment section, there is every single person from every national league going, this is a state. My org cannot function. Everything is going wrong. You need to do something rapidly. And then you never hear from him again. Where is he? He just disappears off into the wilderness. You're like, where are you, bro? Like, are you going to do something about this? You know, you've got more comments than likes on your flipping post. You know, like, take a minute and consider the thing that you're meant to be growing here. And you know, look, I don't know decisions behind the scenes. I don't know if Riot are going, you know, what Riot are doing, but I can only talk about the present and what we experience from the ERL perspective, which is orgs are, you know, not just, I can't even find the right words. They are bleeding out, right? I mean, I'll just give an example for the. And I think that in a weird way, the NLC is a really good example of this. The NLC currently has life. It has viewership. It has great casters that are being developed for LEC because they are English-speaking casters. You know, a lot of talent has come through that pipeline. The NLC is only alive because of Los Ratones. Even some of the best teams in the NLC right now, Nord, for instance, are only alive because of Los Ratones and only because of the viewership it brings. So the players that are playing for them are praying that the viewership is going to help restart their career. There is nothing there for them in terms of, you know, the money for Jankos, for example, is in streaming. It is not in playing for Nord. You know, Verdant, I think, you know, this is very like hyper niche, but there's like one team that is basically paying like part-time / livable salaries, depending on which country.
Someone implied that some of the bottom NLC teams don't even get salary.
No, they don't. They're all here on voluntary. And by the way, that's true for a lot of the ERLs.
Right.
It's not just true for the NLC.
Right.
But the NLC, you know, just an example. If you are a professional in the NLC, that means you've got one team you can potentially join that will give you a salary equivalent in the UK to a part-time wage, but they expect you full-time, and that's not unfair. Sorry, I want to be really clear. I have no issue with Verdant. I think they're one of the best orgs in the NLC, and I think they're doing a lot of things right. But the point is if you just take a look at that in reality, in realistic terms, as someone who has worked in the ERLs for a super long time, I have no idea if I'm going to be able to coach next year. I mean, I've done my best to jump from team to team, place to place. By the way, not because I don't want to continue coaching and not because these teams necessarily kick me or anything, but it's because you know, you need to have some kind of salary coming in to be able to pay rent and live as a human being, regardless of your skills, right? And you know, if the ERLs are really in that state, you don't know what's coming around the corner. You know, like it can very quickly become like the fall of Rome. You know, it's like it's all limping on, and then suddenly it collapses and doesn't exist anymore. I mean, maybe not the best history, maybe not the best summary of history, but the point is you need to take action now and not be complacent. And I really think it's important to try and just push that message forward. I wish I could have delivered it better, but I really think it's true.
I think it's a fair point. I think for people that don't really know the names, Superliga is the Spanish ERL. It's basically LFL, which is France, has been the biggest one over the last couple of years. But basically, Superliga has been there since like Challenger Series. You know, when Challenger Series was a thing. You know, it was the Superliga Orange was like the big league in Europe that like in 2015, 2014, this is where all the top players went. You either went to Turkey if you were like a 16-year-old because you could only play EULCS at 17, you either went to Turkey or you went to Spain. Those were your two options, right? And now basically it looks like they're kind of winding it up. And I don't even think this is a canary in the coal mine moment. Like I think the canary in the coal mine was back last year when Poland and Benelux was okay, maybe not so much Benelux, but when Poland went through something like this, I think that was the canary. I think this is like crisis point, right? And people will say, why should you give a shit about grassroots League of Legends, right? Like, you've got LEC. Why should we invest time into our grassroots? And what I would say is, grassroots are the people that are reaching out to the to the domestic fans. It's the people who are drumming up interest, turning people who are casual viewers to like more invested viewers. And who are the people that are basically bringing in your fan base. Orgs like Heretics and KC, they're big because of what they did at ERLs and then brought it forward, right? Like KC were built. Sure, they were built on streamers, but there's plenty of streamer teams in LFL. But the reason they grew as big as they did is firstly because they had the streamers, but also then they had a lot of success at the ERLs, right? And then they marketed that in the right way, and they built on that in the right way, and they did a lot of good things over the last 4 years. But it started with that domestic success, and I think we already see the dangers. Like you can look at the NA model, right? Like in NA, why is NA in such a shit position now? It's because 6 years ago, 5 years ago, like a lot of decisions were made to basically kill the grassroots scene in North America, which I'm not going to go into because we're a European show. But basically, fundamental damage was done to the grassroots system in North America. Play VS, okay, I'm not going to. It's a sore point. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But if you do the same thing to Europe, maybe you don't see the same thing in LEC now, but you will see it in 3 to 4 years, right? And this is the moment where action needs to happen, right? Because if you don't, and I think that you can already see a lot of this lack of care. Like for instance, EU Masters, right? Compare how much attention and focus and format focus was done for EU Masters 3 years ago compared to last year and compared to this year, right? They were even planning to host the EU Masters final during the semi-finals of Worlds or something, right? We've spoken about this on the show already before. Los Vatones were even going to skip EU Masters because it wasn't going to be feasible, right? Fitting in the rest of the calendar. And I think this lack of care, there's a lot that can be done, right? Obviously funding is best, right? But funding, even more exposure can be good. Even more, that there used to be a segment on on LEC where they would cover what was going on in the ERL leagues. When was that? When was that scrapped? 2023, right?
It was
I
just
around
remember it being the case. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, even things like that doesn't cost you anything, right? But it will bring interest, it will bring eyeballs on this league. Talking to some of the domestic casters, right, on your show. You just have a 15-minute segment every week, right? It's not like a huge amount of investment, but right now the way things are going is going to cause irreversible damage. I mean, LFL will probably still survive because it's a ton of streamer teams there, right? But that's not enough to sustain your ecosystem, and it's not enough to build your grassroots fan base, right? And that is a problem, right? I'm not saying that every single 300 people in ERLs deserve a career, right? Because the people would just say, oh, that's what maybe fans want to hear, that's what players and coaches want to hear, right? But it makes economic sense from Riot, right? The amount that you would have to do to make a massive difference to sustain things long term and avoid EU going in the same direction as NA is so minor that it's just crazy not to do it, right?
And I would love to make. Sorry,
Yeah.
please go on, Peter. But
Go
just
ahead.
sorry, two really quick points, but I think it's just a really distilled way of saying it. One, stop having it be that everyone in the ERLs is screaming into the void. It's like that scene in Interstellar where bro comes back for he's in the flipping ghosty 4-dimensional space, banging on the bookshelves please don't go, and we're here trying to get through to Riot in that situation, and Riot are oblivious. They just don't know what's going on. It's there is so much that can be done, but you're screaming into a void. You're in a muffled room. You're in a padded cell. That's really how it feels for some of these org owners, for the coaches, for the managers, for the whatever, all the people who are involved who want to keep this space alive, because you can't just do it out of sheer love for the game and the community you're in. You do have to live, right? And I think that's really please fix that communication link and give us a Drew Levin of the ERLs. Like I don't I don't care necessarily who it is. I just want someone to be there in permanent communication that is visible, that is contactable, that is doing stuff.
Bro, the underrated thing always is this.
Saying is there.
What people don't get, and actually what's funny is Riot does a really good job of this on patches compared to other devs, just not in the esports side. What you want from Riot is this. You just want them to tell us the reason you're doing something. We might not even agree, but somehow it makes it so different if you feel like, one, they listen to feedback, and two, they tell you why they do stuff. Like, I know what you mean. They barely do that for LEC, so they definitely don't do it for ERLs.
Yeah. I'm sorry to derail you, Peter. I just felt like that was the most clear way I could state my point. I don't know if you've got more to say as well. But
no. I mean, you're exactly right? Like, it's just about communication. And the thing is, these are the people that built your ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And like a lot of them are leaving, and it's been a process. Now, what was the team that Ica used to play on? Which had Yellow Stars GM.
LDLC.
No, they were in LFL. I can't remember the name of the team.
Yeah, that is LDLC. Okay, but my bad.
But one of the sorry, this bothers me enough that give me literally.
If it's LDLC, fuck you, seriously. But go on, look it up. Look it up.
Sorry.
Really? Was it a team called LDLC? Well, fuck me. It's almost like I know a thing or two, but whatever. Keep going. Keep going.
It glitched. I thought you were saying LDLC.
No, keep going.
LDLC. Yep, but it kind of started at LDLC, and then it's like now we're in Superliga as a whole, and like I mean I think Torok said it at best. It's just comms. It's just comms, and just like having if you were talking to people from the ERLs, you wouldn't do things like the EMEA Masters fiasco, right? That they've done in summer, right?
Yes.
And the only reason you could come up to that situation is if you just literally understand nothing about the ecosystem, right? And maybe invest like an hour a week of one person's time.
Riot. If you're listening to this, because I'm trying to talk to you right now, I will work full time and do your comms for free.
Right.
Okay. Like I'm not even joking. I've been in the ERLs for 7 years. I'm a solid English speaker, fluent. I know a lot of people in the ERLs. They know me. They know I'm a trustworthy source of managing things and all the rest of it. I will do it for you if you just give me the information, and I will bandy backwards and forwards with everyone if you gave me the position.
You'll be the ERL liaison.
Yeah. And I'm sure other people in the ERLs, by the way, would say the same. It does not have to be me. But I'm telling you right now, I would do it. And I would do it whilst I'm doing my, I was thinking of becoming a teacher in the UK this year, right? I'll do that whilst I'm teaching full time. I will come home and I'll sit there and, let's reply to, 10 tweets today or communicate this. I don't mind. I mean, obviously I'd prefer if it was like, something that could be sustainable for me too, right? But like, I love my League of Legends community. I love the career that I've had in this game. I've had amazing experiences because of that. And I think I've contributed genuine value to the players that I've coached, and hopefully some, in the coaching ecosystem as well. I agree that maybe, to Peter's point that, at the end of the day, there is a point called financial viability, right? And not everyone can always have a job. But this is something which is utterly fixable, utterly doable. So please, hear us. We want to talk to you, and we want to, we want to just hear from you, yeah, it would make a huge difference.
By the way, the thing I hate the most about this topic is, first of all, there was always a thing people did with the RLs that I always thought was like a bit noobish and actually just bad form, which is the same. I'll give you the analog. It's what people do when they rank the regions in League. Now, obviously, the nightmare fuel one are the fucking Americans, because what the Americans do is they just have to have one team be better, and they go, the whole region is better. It's like, that's not how it works, idiot. Do you not understand the concept of a pattern? An outlier, by definition, is removed, and you look at the overall pattern. So you'd have to have, essentially, the difference is we'd know which region was better based on teams like 4, 5, 6, 7, wouldn't we, playing each 100%. Other, not the top 3 that go to Worlds. That's actually the cream of the crop.
And also how many fans that come to the
of course.
final.
So first of all, in the same way they do that, when everyone heralded the success of both EU Masters and the ERLs, those were hard carried by some of the generational talents Peter's talking about. Notice how the old EU Masters, the one that had the Forgiven and Froggen run, which was epic, and then the ones that had the Nemesis, those are still remembered now like fucking Terminator 2, like classic movies. Logically, that should be in the million years in the past. Everyone should be loving all these recent ones. But people people have a sense that like they let it just wither on the vine as a fucking product. Like it didn't even. In fact, you can even argue the rise of the ERL somewhat undercut the EU Masters. Before that, people watched LEC and then maybe EU Masters as well and see, oh, these are the next top talents. So similarly, then on the ERL thing, because people were too busy seeing the products that came to the LEC that were really top players and then bragging against Americans whose amateur system was a fucking joke and really was just like a player that had played 5 years in LCS still playing for no reason. You never plan to promote him. No one will ever sign him to the LCS, but he's just better in the first week than the rookie, so you never give the rookie a chance. So because we were all dunking on Americans, like, look at our ERL, we have like a whole European football, so we don't. It was always insanely carried by the LFL and the LVP. Those two, I always used to say, don't tell me ERL, tell me it's the LFL or the LVP, because if it's any of the other ones, I'm not as interested. Like, spoiler, people don't even fucking know the ones that were like the Nordic ones. No one knows anything about that shit. The joke is the NLC, that's how you know Los Ratones, Cadril, Reckless, and Rankos, and all those have brought that attention. Because the only thing the NLC had was that crazy broadcast talent. It had amazing, like LEC level broadcast talent. But I used to think, why does it have that for a league where I know people don't get paid and no one could even name all the fucking teams if they're like an LEC fan? Like, that league is not what you would think it would. It's not the fucking Premier League of League of Legends, I'll tell you that right now. It's a million miles off. So, it was all, essentially, this is why, to tie to your thing about the canary in the coal mine, you had a tenuous like actual product anyway. It was working, but it was working because of the best parts. And the mistake you made was just imagining if you did nothing to it, it would just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and become an opposite. And question mark, suddenly you'd say it is the championship, like in English football, where actually famously in English football we have a very good system of all the divisions of leagues down, and championship is a very legit level, which actually is comparable to the top league in like certain other European countries. That NLC is a joke one. It's only now considered relevant because everyone cares about Los Ratones, which also is completely sort of like, I'm doing air quotes here, cheating by having actual fucking people who could win the LEC for fuck's sake, and like legendary players that choose to step down and be overqualified. That's not actually the league. Like, it's not, put it this way, NLC didn't produce those players, did it? Like, they came down to the LEC like Jesus reaching down to a leper and picking him out. Like, the leper didn't do it, did he? It was Jesus and Jesus' power. This is a religious podcast now. You're all going to say Christ is Lord. No, whatever. Anyway, the point is, like, they already had issues before. So the other thing I would have been doing if I was Riot is I would have been scrutinising LVP and LFL so hard these last years, because the second they have any drop-off, the whole thing's going to fucking go like a stone, mate. And the second those leagues, I even think, by the way, an underrated aspect is the success of KC bringing the main team up to the LEC, I think undercut some of the significance of the LFL now. Because, yeah, sure, they're still running things down there with the blue team or whatever, but it's not the same as when they used to do the Los Ratones. They used to bring over, if people don't know, they were paying Reckless like 300,000 euros a year to not even be the best Reckless as an ADC in their league. That's something you're not supposed to get in the LFL. That's an overqualified player. You don't have that anymore. Go on.
I know, and there was hype about that. Everyone remembers the Reckless KC win, right? Absolutely. Because people were invested in that story of like, Reckless is escaped contract jail. He's in KC. Yes. Can he do it? Right? Yes. And I mean, okay, this is fully like, I don't know if this is the most viable thing to say, but if there was a universe where the ERLs did have these absolute titanic teams, KC on one, Giant X coming from Spain, I mean, Heretics coming from Spain, and they were all clashing as titans in like the EU Masters thing as a sort of grand finale and for world seeding, that would be the most ridiculously insane hype tournament of all time, especially if there was maybe some crossover at some point. But the thing is yeah, it's KC Blue, and the KC have done a good job of trying to market their academy team and their academy team to their fans. I think their fans are quite attached to those teams, in all honesty. But yeah, you're right. The LFL has lost some of its shine because okay, it's Galleons, and really or whatever. And the truth is, they're being held together by streamers. All of these leagues.
That was going to be the other thing I was going to say, by the way. Another problem you have, because I can tell you this is happening if people don't follow other games, Riot has just announced they're basically going to remove MCOY from their Valorant circuit because apparently Ibai didn't stream enough of the games. But this is not a joke. You have to stop pretending this is sports, and if you build it, they will come. No, what you have to do is literally go very cynically to people like Ibai, Kameto, all those people, and you have to literally have deals with them that are like, I need you to do X number of games a split. By the way, in this case, if you're Spanish and you want to be part of this, I've got to have you do some of the ERL as well, because I've got to build that up. I've got to guarantee a certain interest level in the league. And so you've got to go top down on some of that stuff. But I also agree, you also got to go grassroots up. You've also got to make the league. It doesn't make sense that one level below total professional, top of Europe, can have people get paid nothing. Like, that's insanity. That's not even like sports. In sports, the drop-off's not that crazy. That would be like if the pro player in the Premier League in football got the millions and the other guy was working as a fireman on the side and just did it on the weekend. Like, that happens at the like fucking Division 5 or something in the UK Football League. Like, not fucking to Championship. You're still like a top professional who gets a real salary, yeah.
Riot love to talk about their competitive pyramid because I've listened to them talk about this, and they show this image of the pyramid as like it's some kind of like equilateral triangle. Okay, this is the most isosceles triangle you've ever seen. It is like this, you know, like the second you fall off the competitive pyramid in League, and I mean I've been trying, you know, with double, you know, ice picks to be climbing up the side of this pyramid for like 7 years, right? And I've just about been able to like hold on, but the amount of people, and you know, who knows, right, at this point, but you know, the amount of people who fall off this pyramid and just fall into the abyss of nowhere is incredible. And also, how do you get your next eBay? How do you get your next Cadril? Where did Cadril come from? He was playing in the UK scene for Diabolus or something like this before he eventually got his break with like H2K and all the rest of it, right? Where was Cadril generated from? The grassroots. So, you know, without the grassroots UK League of Legends scene, would we have even got Cadril? Or the European scene at all? Well, maybe not, by the way, because he wasn't the most outstanding player that we've ever seen. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't God's gift to League of Legends, right? But that's the way he got into the scene, and obviously he's so huge for League of Legends now. I think Peter, you wanted to say something, but you know, it's just.
No, I mean,
just to make
eBay as well, right? eBay was caster for LVP, right? That's how he grew.
Yeah, there you go.
He grew his brand because he was a caster for LVP and then was really good at it.
Right, two things. One, just like the canary in the coal mine point, what you actually need to study in America is the LTA, because the LTA had those warning signs years ago, like Peter says. This isn't something that people have woke up this year like, what the hell? The league's sort of in trouble and isn't expanding and getting better and people want to leave. That's been known for like most of the last half a decade. Like, people knew this. The writing was all on the wall, as the old cliche goes, but you ignored it and you wait till the very end, and then you only tried all the crazy changes and things at the very end. Well, at that point in time, momentum, inertia is a thing in esports. Like, once it builds up, it becomes way harder to turn back and to go back to what you had before. You have to try when it's only just started to go wrong to fix it then, because that's when it's going to take the least amount of time and the least amount of effort and money and attention to fix. Whereas now, like you're saying, it would have to be like a full-scale thing to change this one. And actually, one thing you suggested that I want to expand on is, to me, an obvious area you are fucking up is I have a problem we can solve using either like ERLs or the EU Masters tournament, which is a problem at LEC, which is LEC doesn't have all of its split finals in a stadium with fans. That's already fucking absurd for 2025 in the biggest esport in the world in a major region like Europe. Like, you have to understand, guys, I used to go to Counter-Strike tournaments like 15 years ago that were all in front of fans on a fucking stage on LAN with the pressure. The idea you're having all, like, Caps has won like fucking 2/3 of his rings just in front of the normal audience and the janitor at LEC studio. What is that? That's not even a professional sport. So in my opinion, here's how you cost save but do the finals still. Just combine them. Have like a fucking either time the splits or Masters, so that like the EU Masters final, have it at the same venue as the LEC final, double up so you cut the costs on both. Someone gets a ticket to see both on the same day. You can even have the EU Masters match be the warm-up to the final itself that tests all the equipment and gets the fans hyped like a warm-up act in a band, etc. That's an obvious one you could do. Similarly, by the way, you could do it with the other splits also with the fucking ERLs. Like, if you really love the LVP, they have a massive fan base, why not plan their finals so that that's before the LEC final, etc. So that when them coys win in LEC Spring, you're then watching the fucking LVP final. Like, surely all the Spanish people, by the way, you could even have it in Spain. Think about it, you fucking idiots. Spain and France are even two obvious places to have these fucking finals, aren't they? And also, here's why, if you actually supported the grassroots, this would eventually save you money at LEC levels. Because people like KC are the ones that can go out and make the regional connections to get the stadiums. They can get you it cheaper. If you come, hi, I am Big Balls Riot Games, owned by Tencent. Tencent, can I please rent your stadium? That's why Hollywood movies cost so much, because when you know it's Hollywood renting your place, you make it 5 times the fucking cost, because they have to pay it, they need the fucking venue. So I feel like there are actually so many... The problem with this whole topic, though, is it goes back to what you said. There isn't a person either listening or who's taking this feedback. Like, they don't have to even be some genius who sees the future. There are many things you can try. I picked all things that people have tried in other games and have had success elsewhere. So I feel like the real problem is if you just feel like no one's listening, even if you come up with a good idea, or if you throw it out there, does it just go into the void? Does it just disappear and become nothing? No, I'm with you. I think it's a very good point. I think it's a very good point.
It's kind of crazy, actually, now you mention it, Thorin. So I don't follow, because I've retired, right? So I don't really follow Germany anymore. But now that I think about it, NLC, LFL, and LVP have had more stadium finals.
I've no doubt they do, yeah. Yep.
Like, crazy. That's crazy.
I'm not joking. Essentially, Troublelink is actually, in theory, in a bad spot in League of Legends. She doesn't get put on LEC very often, and her main gig is NLC. She's probably done more LAN finals than the fucking LEC people at this point in time. Unless they go to the internationals, she'll have done more in, like, not even the third best ERL, for fuck's sake. Like, that's kind of some clown show shit. I'm with you. Right, okay. What is your point then for Ugly Peter? By the way, get ready for this. This is so unfucking brand. Right, I want to set the stage. Like, it's the fucking LEC. We're talking about the playoffs, and somehow he doesn't even play anymore. Peter's made it about Humanoid. So go on, hit. All right, then, one last time, let's do it.
So my other point is
I love it.
I love it. You know?
Yeah, of course.
I've got
The ugly thing is your obsession with Humanoid, but yeah, go ahead anyway.
His agent loves you, Peter.
I don't know, it's mad.
He loves you.
Mad in it.
Like,
I mean, all I say is, Humanoid has the second or third highest world streak of like any mid laner.
Oh, that's true.
I don't even know if his streak ends this year because he's not playing, right? So does that mean his streak ends?
Okay.
But anyway, 6 consecutive worlds in a row. Just
pretty good.
Maybe it should have been 7, But anyway, look, here's what I'm going to say, right? So my talk is a little bit about Humanoid, it's a little bit about Heretics. So basically, like, off-season is coming. We've spoken about BDS. We know lots of changes are going to happen. There's likely to be changes on Heretics. There's likely to be changes on, I would say Fnatic if they don't go to Worlds. Fnatic or KC, whichever one of those don't go to Worlds, and things like this, right? And my topic very specifically is when you are thinking about the off-season, remember about culture fit. And the culture fit that I'm going to talk about is Humanoid to Heretics, which on paper, if you talk about Humanoids to Heretics, this is the biggest slam dunk you can possibly imagine, right? Because just imagine Heretics with Humanoid this year, right? Without Kamilu in the mid lane. This team would have been like a fucking crazy team.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is just remember, when you're judging the off-season, that culture matters, right? And why am I talking about this? It's because I saw a lot of people, because Humanoid was released, right? Like, they're never going to release him now unless they've got to deal with somebody. I hope it's for Humanoid. I hope it's TL. But for Heretics.
By the way, just in case a fan doesn't understand, since his contract ended anyway at the end of this year, Fnatic's just being nice to him, give him a chance to get out there instead of him having to wait until the off-season, like, musical chairs, right? Essentially, like, it made sense because his contract was up anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's an odd time to announce it.
That's
the
true.
day that you're playing your most and best of 5 of the year. But look, here's what I'm going to say, right? So this isn't a flame to Humanoid. This isn't a flame to Machuki, right? I just want to really, really start that before I say that. Right? But when you look at an org like Heretics, think when you're trying to judge what is a likely off-season move and what is likely to be an off-season move that succeeds and an off-season move that fails. Think carefully about the culture of the org that you're looking at and the personality of the player, right? And what I will say for Heretics is Heretics are a very top-down led coach, top-down led org with Machuki, who's very, very authoritarian type coach, right? Let me give an example. Okay, so I can give a perfect example of this, right? So I'm not going to talk about any other players when I'm talking about Machuki, but I'll talk about kind of Machuki working as Machuki's assistant coach, right? So Machuki is very strict in terms of his rules. He's like, you turn up in the office at this time, you leave at this time, you go home. I don't want to see you in the office no matter what, right? When I was on Heretics, right, I had an agreement with Heretics where, I have a... So in order to get more budget, we have like a room in the gaming house for the head coach, but I gave that up. I took a stipend and so my assistant coach got to have a gaming house spot in Berlin, which was very, very good. But the exchange was I could go and work in the office, right? So Machuki has a very, very strict rule, which is you are show up in the office at 10, you leave at 6 or 7 or whatever it is, and no discussion. This is really, really strict regiment, and this is what we do between this hour and this hour. This is what we do between this hour and this hour. This is what we do within this hour and this hour. I expect this amount of solo queue games. I expect this amount of other like active work every single day, and you must do this, no questions, or there will be punishment, right? And let me put it like this, obviously when you're staying in a hotel, you want to go and stay in the office late. Like, I'm the type of person who would typically stay in the office late. And the rule that was said to me is, if you stay in the office late, are you going to like spend 100% of the time that you're in the office only doing work? And this is when my wife was 8 months pregnant, right? So I was like, well, I'd like to ring my wife for half an hour, in the evening in the middle of my shift, but I will work until 1 o'clock in the morning, like 2 o'clock in the morning is that I've been doing before. But the rule is you're in the office between this time and this time. You're only allowed to stay in the office past this time. It doesn't matter whatever the fuck you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're working or things like this. It doesn't matter if you working in the office means that you have a better workspace, you can be more efficient. These are the rules that are set, and you should follow those rules no matter what, right? There's no flexibility, right? And this is not a bad thing. Again, this is just a way of coaching. As a coach, you have to set an example to your players. If you're staying late, then what can I say to my players, to my other players who want to stay late, right? It's the same kind of system, right? So you have a coach like this, you have a very authoritarian system, which is what Heretics have. It's what, for instance, I think BDS have something similar, although I don't know every single kind of org, but it's very different to what, for instance, Vitality have, right? Which is a lot more open, flexible system,
So how does all of that mean we should put Humanoid on Heretics? It's tiny.
Well, I'm saying if you put Humanoid on Heretics, it's going to be very, very, very. It's going to be a very, very strange relations. Maybe Humanoid fits into the system. He's like the perfect person for the system, right? Because he'll be whipped like every single day and things like this.
Oh, right. You think he needs like a hands-on coach, basically?
No, but I'm saying it won't. I'm saying it. I don't think it will work. But maybe he buys into the system and it will work really, really well. But what I'm saying is that when you're looking at
crazy on this, keep going.
Okay, sorry, I'd monologue for 5 minutes, right? But what I'm trying to say about this, to bring my point to the close, is don't assume, don't make the mistake that I see a lot of fans make in previous off seasons, which is this is if I'm playing Football Manager, this is the most obvious transfer in the world, and if Heretics don't sign Humanoid, they're fucking crazy because obviously it's the best fit you can possibly imagine, and they're getting a top 3 or top 4 mid laner in the position that they're weakest in, and this should be obvious, right? Often think carefully in the off season about, try to piece together, because a lot of this stuff leaks in interviews, right? What kind of a structure the org has and the type of players that they're trying to sign. And often, if you want to know who's going to fuck up the most in the off season, it will be the org that just signs people for names and signs people for how talented they are without thinking about the systems. And this year, the big thing that I will say in LEC for this year, when you're studying how people have fucked up their transfers in the LEC, it's been because people have signed names without thinking about how they fit into original systems. And that's what, if you want to get ahead for next year and you want to understand who's winning the offseason, it's not the org that has signed all those star names, right? It's the org that has a coherent strategy and a coherent system that they fit their players
into. All right, here's what I should say. Here's the clarifying point, right? I get it now. What Peter's actually saying is confusing, because it sounded like he was advocating for Heretics to sign Humanoid, but he's actually saying that would be the classic move you'd do, because if you're Heretics org, it sounds like a steal. Holy fuck, we can get Humanoid. That's a bit like when they got Perks and Junkers and all that. But he's basically saying they actually probably shouldn't do that move. Like, maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe it's not the right fit for him as a player if he was to play, right? Is that it?
Yeah. I'm saying that the talent level is obvious, but the whether it or not it works is purely about whether this person will fit into this coach's system, right? And you already know that. You can already know that from now, right? Like, I can tell you that if a certain player signs for a particular org, it's going to fail immediately because I know what that org system is or that coach's system, and that's the thing to pay attention to, right? Now, if Humanoid buys into whatever Machuki's system is and is willing to fit into an authoritarian system and fit in there, maybe it's a really, really great signing. But the systems thing is what really matters for the offense.
By the way, one quick question. I assume this is just like you say, the off-season coming, he's going to be free, you could pick him up, right? You don't have any inside info, because all I'll say is, like, as of right now, based on the stuff I heard, Humanoid might never play League of Legends professionally again, mate. It sounded to me like he might be done. So if you haven't heard anything, is it implied he wants to come back to play? Is this speculation?
I haven't heard anything. I think it would be crazy for him to do that.
I don't think so as well. It'd be silly.
I think he would be. I mean, I think Fnatic would be going to Worlds if he was still playing for them, right? But like what I'm saying is that a lot of this, the reason why I mentioned the Humanoid Heretics thing is that all of it that I've seen is purely about talent level, right? It's not about the system fit. And that's why this is an ugly point, right? It's not that I don't think Humanoid can find success in Heretics. It's people, if you're trying to be smart about your off-season, as orgs and also as fans, to predict how things are going to go for next year, think about the systemic fit almost as much, if not more, than the talent fit, right? And that's why it's ugly for me, rather than just bad. It's because nobody's thinking about that, and that's what's going to define whether or not it works. But if we're playing Football Manager, Humanoid Heretics is like the best thing you can possibly imagine. Heretics can compete for Worlds next year if they can get a motivated Humanoid onto that roster, right? But again, that's not how things work.
By the way, I also low-key do think games like Football Manager did actually sort of ruin fans' brains, because the definition of Football Manager is you are literally a plug-and-play player with those stats that goes to that team, and the stats add up, and you're that team. The problem is that's not how games work, not how real life works at all. It's so much about communication, but there's a million factors, of course. Yeah, right, Torok, what do you have to say? There's a lot there. Yeah. Pick from the smorgasbord.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think the simplest way I'd sort of paraphrase what Peter's saying, I think this makes sense, is that if you're you can put a 91 rated player into the wrong system and he becomes a 56 or a 78, but again, not to go back to Man United, so keep going. Yeah, so you've got to be you do have to be really choosy on this. And I mean, I guess I'll do an interesting thought experiment just to take the discussion off putting Humanoid into the wrong system, but whether a team should try and adapt their system around signing Humanoid, right? I mean, because he is clearly this talent. I mean, there's no doubt about that, especially from Peter's perspective. A team that takes Humanoid goes incredibly far. Why not? If you're SK and your brand is non-existent and you're kind of a whatever team in LEC at the moment, why not get rid of absolutely everyone? And I'm not advocating for this, but I'm just going
thought experiment
land. Yeah, get rid of absolutely everyone. Humanoid mid, build the system around him. And then you have a genuine franchise player plus brand plus a potential, a very attractive team to join, because you've got quite a good player on mid.
Yeah.
And actually, reinvent yourself a little bit.
Maybe bring in Kazi from Vitality. There's a guy called Shadow. You plays in LPL. You could probably.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
There's all sorts of players out there. There's a guy called Kaiser support. You could probably fit in. I can see the team coming together.
He's German as well, isn't he? So that'd be quite
exactly.
useful for an SK brand. It's funny how that works. But in fact, I think Chasey's still knocking about.
Okay.
But the really and Armut for that matter. But the really big thing to consider here is you do have one of those sort of titans of the scene available, and you should, at least if you're an organization that maybe is flagging a little bit. I love a creative solution to a problem. Obviously, one as long as it makes sense. And if you are just flagging a little bit, we know how the system, or at least to some degree, how this world works, right? You got to get eyeballs. You got to make people care about your team. You got to care about the brand. It doesn't really matter how competitive your team is. If nobody wants to watch you, you're kind of irrelevant, right? And of course you can try and be the we're always the team that does good, so you should care about us brand. But that's a very weak brand, and it especially doesn't work when you're 8th, right? So maybe you should consider the fact that you do have this quite interesting moment in time that you can either choose to seize or let slip past. And I'm not necessarily advocating for any org to make this, because I don't know the individual business plans and whatever else and ideas that all these orgs have agreed to, but it should doubtless be something that the GM has sat down with a piece of paper and gone, right, what happens if I just stick Humanoid in and shape everything to make sure that works, and does that change something for my actual organization as a whole within League of Legends? Is that something that will shift the paradigm on how SK is viewed in the LEC for the next 3 to 5 years by signing Humanoid? And truthfully, it could be, if you do it right. I'm not saying it's entirely true, because I don't know how big his individual fan base is. I don't feel like, I could be wrong, I don't think he streams that much. I guess he's popular in in certain
In
areas.
your
and less
league.
popular in others. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, he was at the final that we were at in August, right? So he's got a bunch of fans there. But you've got to it's got to be something that you sit down and consider. And I hope all of the orgs are doing it, and I guess actually many are. I'd be shocked if you weren't. But that's also where you've got to make a decision. Do I like having the Machuki authoritarian coach system that's worked really well for us at Heretics? Is that our model? Is that the reason you care about us? That we take these promising rookies and drill them into shape and do a bunch of things that way, and that's why you should watch Heretics? Or is it, we need maybe I'm just going to keep using the SK example. Rebuild everything from the ground up, sign Humanoid, and get going. It might be the best thing for the org, even if it's not the best thing for other things. So. Yeah.
And I mean, ironically, the best fit for him is probably on Vitality, but there's literally zero chance that that's going to happen, right? But I think like the interesting thing will be in this off season, an org like Navi, that's potentially a very, very good fit there. Like an org like SK, you go and rebuild from the ground up, and I think that we will see. I think there is an opportunity here because I don't think the Humanoid has fallen. Like I think that I think Fnatic fans are literally crazy, right? Like the narrative around Humanoid on Fnatic is literally crazy, and this playoffs and this regular season is showing how stupid it is, right? Like this guy is still one of the best leaders for your team, right? Just because he pretends not to give on shit on social media, and he plays solo queue, but the way that he learns the game is he studies the game a ton, right? Like Inspired is exactly the same. Inspired doesn't play a ton of solo queue. Inspired is watching VODs all the time, right? Like that's how he improves the game on the game, right? Are you telling Inspired that he should be playing like 50 games of NA solo queue every single day? He'd probably get worse every single week. He'd probably get worse doing that, right? Like it's the same sort of thing with Humanoid, and I think it's very, very rare that you have the opportunity to sign somebody like this who can have such a positive influence on your org, and somebody is either going to do a really, really good potential org rebuild this off season around Humanoid, or they're going to massively fuck it up by trying to fit in him into a system that doesn't belong. And if he's done, it's tragic to me.
Then you don't want to sign him anyway as well if he's done, because that's
but I mean, if he's like actually retired, right? then like I haven't heard this, but if he is, then that's just like a tragedy for the game, and I'm sure we'll come and talk about that some other day. But whatever happens in the off season with Humanoid, this has been a very bad year for GMing in Europe, right? And we're going to see a lot in this off season about whether it's just a 1 year blip or whether GMs are really, really smart about what they're going to do. And the big person I would watch this offseason is Humanoid, and what kind of role and what kind of team he's been put in and what kind of role he's been expected to fit on the team. If he's gone to NA or if he's picked up by literally zero EU orgs, then EU is just completely stupid, right? Unless he himself is done, right? But we just have to wait in this offseason. But Humanoid is the guy to track. If you're worried about the state of GMing in Europe, watch what happens with Humanoid this offseason. You will learn a lot. And don't listen to Fnatic fans. Like, they don't know what they're talking about.
Right, I'll do a quick version of this. First of all, I actually agree. Fnatic fans have lost their fucking mind completely. Like, the reason I said the Porby signing wasn't a good signing is because you at least see the fucking year out when you make a super team. Like, here's the worst thing about that move. I'm sorry, unless it works out and you go to Worlds, and forget that, you would have gone to Worlds anyway. You go to Worlds and do something there, like some crazy run or come close to making playoffs. What the fuck were you doing this year in Fnatic if you're the GM and the coaching staff? What, do you just not do anything in your job? Do you just set the players like it is Football Manager at the beginning of the year? Then if you don't win, go, oh well, guess that roster doesn't work. What did I just say about G2? G2 got better every single split in all the areas they were weak until eventually in the summer they also had a flawed super team roster. Their team is really good. Their team looks like number one. Their team looks like it has its best chance to actually make a run at Worlds and be maybe even the best Western team, and they might do it with an LEC title in the back pocket. If you're Fnatic, what, you just did 2 splits and went, I mean, we were really good in regular split, but just didn't work out in the play. Oh, well, scrap that then. And then the almost expensive player, let's just pay him to not play the game, bring in a fucking understudy and faker who never made it, and then just go, actually, you could just leave if you want. You can go home early, mate. Like, what the fuck are you doing in the Fnatic org? And by the way, same org that it's been talked about for years now didn't invest in the sports psychology people and the performance staff and the extra people in your team, still acting like it's 2017 and you have a coach who just tells people, lock that in. That's not how you run an org, I'm sorry. Like, Fnatic is living off their fucking rep and the fact that because they used to be the best, all these players want to go and play there. They still think it's funny if they are the Man United of fucking League of Legends. People go there because they think, I want to be in Man United. It'd be cool to be a Man United player. It's not cool when you're in these fucking shit ones, though, that don't work and bomb every playoffs, is it? So I would just say, if you're the coach and stuff in the GM, signing Porby was you basically just buying skywriting, I can't do my job. Well, then why are you in Fnatic's my next question? You should be in motherfucking Heretics. So maybe you and your Heretics, you can sign Humanoid. Because on that topic, if Humanoid chooses to play, and he does want to play, and by the way, he obviously can. This isn't like a Larson thing where he's been bad for a year or two. He's still really fucking good. Yes, he has his problems in the playoffs. Listen, only in the really big matches. Well, guess what? If you aren't in Fnatic or G2 or KC, beggars can't be choosers, mate. You wish you could have a guy choke once he gets to the upper bracket final. Your GX and fucking Heretics, you're not even getting there, bro. You're watching it like me on stream. At that point, it doesn't matter. You took a jersey off. I never had to put a jersey on and off. We're both in the same spot. So for you, beggars can't be. You should want Humanoid if you can. But I do agree, though, the big mistake would be just everyone says, Humanoid, sign with us, and then we'll just give you this contract. Because I agree, you either already have a project where there's a humanoid-shaped hole and you think he could fix it, or you do what Torok said, you start with Humanoid and you go, I'm going to start with you and a coach that I think can work with you, and together we're going to build a squad and we're going to go for it. And by the way, one last thing to say, if the rumour I heard as to why Humanoid also was replaced was that supposedly he's the player this year that behind the scenes was sort of like, not really asked anymore, that can, not only can he not think that, you have to literally have a very, very long off-season conversation where you ensure that will never happen if he plays this year. That if he plays, listen, you can quit at the end of the year if you want, but if you sign, we're in it for the whole year. Because the other point about the Fnatic thing is, this isn't the way the leagues run anymore. The ultimate goal in LEC, if you're not G2, is just get to Worlds. So if that was the goal, why would you just go, well, I failed in the mini races before the main one, so I'll just quit the main race? Like, no, the whole thing was about the summer race. The whole year was about getting ready for summer, and that's when you just abandoned the roster, went with this crazy, it's not even a Hail Mary, it's just a weird move where you brought in a guy who fucking just comes from Korea. Like, it's like you almost, by the way, that also sounds like, bring more of those Koreans, and then you end up with Porby, you fucking idiot. Like, yeah, well done. Can I have, hey, I want Loki. We've got Loki at home. It's fucking Porby, yeah. And congrats. Like, there's a reason why everyone else wasn't falling over themselves to sign the guy, wasn't he, you idiots? So, I think it sucks. I also agree, he would make a team on paper like Heretics way better. I mean, the joke would be they could probably be like the fourth, third best team. It's just, who the fuck knows if his vibe would be there? Like, I'm imagining a world where he walks in, he sees a team where it's like, that guy was a fucking nobody from mini RL. This guy just doesn't know the game. I told that guy once what to do. You know what? Fuck it. Can't be asked. And then I don't want to play the summer split. Actually, I could also see that happening too. So you better actually know who you're signing if you do sign him. Right. The last point of the show. I made this one quite simple and open-ended so we can all talk about it. It's just that in the lower bracket now, after all the shit on this episode we all talked on Fnatic, we should say, look, I do personally think they will beat GX. I think Karmine Corp will definitely beat Vitality. So I think the last match for the last world spot will be a motherfucking banger. It will be Fnatic against KC. Spoiler, neither fan base is allowed to lose that match. You're all going to go mental no matter who wins that match. But I actually think that this is how bad it is for you right now, Karmine Corp. I'm not making it that it's ugly for Fnatic and Karmine Corp. You've managed to make it uglier for Karmine Corp if you don't go to Worlds than fucking Fnatic, because with the Porby move and with all the failures, nobody minds. Fnatic didn't win a split this year. How ugly would it be? Because the form I've seen from KC right now, yeah, they might beat Fnatic, but that's the only saving grace. And they might lose, by the way. That's not even impossible. KC has just never figured it out. They never came back from first stand the same. They've never been as good this split. There's been some fundamental problems, and they just exist still. And that whole thing of like, yeah, but the team fighting, mate, there's lots of games they don't get to that point in the game, or that's the only thing that saves them. Essentially, like people like Cannon and Kalist have to actually just smurf in a big team fight. Like, that can't be the game plan to win best of 5 series. So I'm just thinking of the ugly. What if Karmine Corp don't make it to Worlds? Can you even imagine this? Think of it. You bring Kalist in the league. You actually yourself hype him as like the greatest thing since sliced bread. The greatest thing since literally Faker, essentially. You bring him in the league. Then you have like this huge move with Yike. After winter, everyone's going, G2 fucked up, man. They should have kept Yike, man. Because you don't watch the motherfucking game. I take Skumond every day of the week and Sunday. Sundays, and even if I was told pick a Swedish player, I'd go Humanoid, eat this shitty herring and put a bad fucking sailor hat on, pretend you're Swedish, mate. We're not taking yike. So Humanoid all day long. Then you went to MSI, yeah, that wasn't that good. EWC, you had a great run. If you had GT, I can't handle the idea. KC was sat at home watching MSI and EWC. They didn't get that one. And then now, bro, they might not even be in the finals. They might not win the split. They might not even go to Worlds. I think that would be so ugly. It'd be crazy. It'd be crazy for the org. It'd be crazy for the fan base. By the way, what the fuck would that say about Europe? We were all saying that Winter proved that Europe's on the rise. Like, our best team from Winter comes fourth. That would be insane. So I'm leaving this wide up. You can take any angle you want on it, Torok. What do you think of this? The possibility they don't make it is nuts to even consider.
It's absolutely nuts, and I don't want to steal Peter's thunder on this, but he might see where the angle that I'm gonna take, which is there's a very real universe that Fnatic and KC don't make worlds. I think GX is scary.
At that point in time, just give G2 the spot every time and shut the league down, mate. Just fucking turn the lights out. You know what I mean?
It's true, because you know the analogy I was giving earlier about the car made out of lollipops and blue tack. I mean, that is just KC and Fnatic like trying their absolute best to get to the finish line, and like the thing is. It really
I even forgot, by the way, they even have their own mid lane drama where they're like, what? Yeah. Like I say, if you look at everything communicated, it looks like they're like one bad day from having a fucking put Niski in there. Like, that's real.
Oh, for sure, by the way. It's hanging from an absolute thread. And I mean, that thread is made from spider silk or something. The fact it still kept going is unreal. But, you know, this is the difference, right? You've kind of got Vitality. Like, I mean, I want them to do. It's kind of a team I'm like quietly rooting for. Like, I really want Mac and Pad and like their kind of little like project to go well, because they obviously got so much stick for so long and everything else. Like, just on like a personal level, you know, I'd like Vitality to do well. Maybe it's the British underdog thing for me. Then there's Jex that actually look like the cohesive middle team that's kind of like fighting for top four. That, you know, that's pushing all of these like other teams all the way. I don't even know if there's a good example for it, but from like football, but you know, they're kind of like the team that should have been like 5th or 6th, and they look like they might be Champions League basically, and they look like they're on it and they're fighting every day to the end of the season to make it.
Aston Villa.
Yeah, let's go with Aston Villa, sure. And then you've got like the two sort of titans, if you will, in KC and Fnatic that have, you know, on paper you're like, right, how on earth are Aston Villa going to do this then? You know, like they look amazing, but they've still got to come past these teams that just are by default good. And they are by default good. That's why they're here, right? They're by default good. But they are simultaneously, you know, discombobulating themselves before our very eyes. And it's just whether they can, you know, get through these essentially two series without self-destructing. You know, that and I mean, of course, GX could self-destruct as well. I'm not saying otherwise, but I know you said KC is probably going to beat Vitality. I agree, but the fact there's even a question that Vitality could beat KC is like. And there is a question. It's a 10% question. It's not a big question, but it's a real question. They turn up, KC explode, Vitality are coming into the next round, by the way, because it just can happen.
By the way, the obvious meme one as well would be that during the series, actually Vladdy has a blow up. They put Niski in, and actually Niski gets Vitality to World. See what I did there? That was the real master plan, the sleeper cell. I love it.
Yeah, and you know, there's so many angles to this, but you know, there is just some crazy overlaps here, and trust me, it is not from. I mean, Peter, you've competed. I'm assume you've had teams like this that are just made up of you know, catching fog in a fishing net. You know, like these teams, they just don't have anything to them apart from the fact that they exist and they are good. And that really is, to me, Fnatic and, to be honest, KC a little bit at this point. And you've got to wonder, like, you know, you when you're in that team, you're wondering, can you like hold it all together as the coaches? You're like, just you're doing everything you can to just keep this ball connected enough. And obviously hoping at some point, because this is how you build momentum, right? You have to find small victories in scrims, small victories in officials. You know, you find new ways of working that are beneficial to you, right? And I think, you know, you never know what's going on in scrims, you never know what's going on in officials. If one of these teams does find these small wins and finds these small clicks, they can come back together. I'm not pretending that these are broken beyond repair, by the way, to be really, really clear. Like they can come back and they can find, I mean, very few teams are broken beyond repair, because you can always find momentum. You can always find ways where your team suddenly starts functioning, because just a few different, you know, one thing changes and it fixes 6, right? That is very, very real, by the way. But at this stage, with the evidence that we have stacked in front of us, both of these teams have not found those little clicks yet. And so you can really be sitting in a world where actually the Aston Villa team, GX, come through and they do just win. And I really don't want to curse them by saying that, because I think that always happens with GX. Even like the GX with Mickey X type team. They were doing the exact same thing. There has been periods across time where this team looks like it might have been able to sort of get over that last hurdle and escape the event horizon, as you said earlier, Thorin, right? There's no better time to try and escape the event horizon when the gravity stops sucking, because it's just fallen apart. The universe doesn't make any sense anymore, and you're flying, and it's like, what on earth happened, right? And that really could happen with Fnatic and KC. It could also very much happen that Fnatic and KC, one of them gets their act together and can just about edge it over the line. But it's a very exciting bracket, to be honest.
Yeah, for me, I think that there's three outcomes here, and maybe I'm being a bit unfair to GX because I think GX have more chance of going to Worlds of Vitality. But I think that there's basically the world where Fnatic go to Worlds, the world where KC go to Worlds, and the world where GX or Vitality. And I wonder whether the combined GX Vitality chance is higher than one of the other two, Photo A, B, and C. Whereas if you would ask me this like 3 weeks ago, a month ago, I would have said that like it's like 49, 1, 2, right? % right? Now I wonder whether it's like 33, 33, 33, or something like this. Because you look at like all of the scrim. So scrims mean nothing, right? Obviously, we know GX are really, really good in scrims, but we know Vitality are pretty garbage in scrims. And lots of people are saying that they're a lot better in scrims than KC right now, right? Which means they're super doomed, right? It means that KC are definitely going to be Vitality if Vitality are winning lots of scrims, right? But this to me, the thing about this though is if GX or Vitality do go to Worlds, sure, great bite from Gilotto, great from Mac and Pad, good coaches deserve all the credit, but you would have to sit here at the end of the season, and you're going to have to sit here at the end of the season, even if Fnatic go, or even if KC go, the Fnatic looking at themselves in the mirror and vice versa, right? And you just have to think it's self-inflicted. Like, we've talked in depth about Fnatic today, right? About the humanoid stuff. We spoke about humanoid and etc. Right? But KC, why are you not scrimming with Vladdy all the time? You're in fucking playoffs, man. Like just you've got to at some point you have to you have to back your guy, right? This is a guy who he works really, really hard. He obviously has talent, right? He's going through a rough patch. And the solution in KC, which is an org whose coaching staff I respect, right, because of all the stuff and GMing that I respect in this offseason, and they're using Nisqy and scrims in the middle of playoffs, and it's not like for 1 week at the start of the split, because in the offseason they used him in scrims as well for 2 days or something. They were using Nisqy in scrims before the season started, right? But people have been saying last week they were using Nisqy in scrims. Like, how can you be using Nisqy in scrims now? Like, we're right in the middle of players. Are you going to play Nisqy against Vitality? Surely not, right? After everything that Vladdy's done. Like, holy moly. If they lose, it's just like self-inflicted. Like, I think KC are the most likely to go to Worlds. But frankly, if they're doing garbage in scrims, they like Vladdy is.
By the way, something else you're setting up for. I've realised the real ugly one is that actually also in the middle of the split, unironically, you have a blow up and you go, right, we'll bring Nisqy in for a game, and then your last game in LEC for the whole year to not come back to Worlds is Nisqy playing mid lane, feeding, and then the whole thing's over. Like, mate, your fan base will burn France to the ground. What are you talking about? It's just not acceptable. They won't accept it, mate. I'm telling you right now, they will not accept it.
I mean, it's even you see some KC fans, it's always hard to tell with KC fans, because sometimes people pretend to be KC fans to troll the KC fan base, right? So I can't tell, right? But surely there is no KC, I saw a lot of people with KC flares who were saying Nisqy should actually play against Vitality, right? And I'm telling you that this is the stupidest thing. That if you are a genuine KC fan and you're not just trolling the fan base, because I know people do that, right? Because they get a reaction, right? Then you are really stupid. Vladdy is the guy who made you scary against international competition. He's been a top 3 mid laner for the entire year, right? And he's going through a rough patch right now. And the solution seems to be play Nisqy in more scrims and just leave Vladdy out to rot, right? And you can see that Vladdy is going through something which isn't normal, right? Because he's not normally flaming he was flaming the KC fan base on his stream like a couple of days ago, right? So clearly there's something up there. Something's going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing. And maybe it's just people flaming him for having bad performances when he feels that it's not on him, right? That they're losing. Or maybe it's just the stress of like the end of the year, right? With Worlds on the line and things like this. But to me, if KC don't make Worlds, it's self-inflicted, right? It's not because the other teams have suddenly miraculously got better. There is no way that Vitality should be beating KC, or that GX should be beating KC. Maybe Fnatic should be beating KC if Fnatic have Humanoid, but not with Poby either, right? Like it's KC's to lose. And why is it KC's to lose? It's because Fnatic shot themselves in the foot. Vitality are like, they're a long-term project. They have so many rookies on that team, right? And GX, sure, they have like players, but you're going to fail to go to Worlds against Isma. Like, come on, man, right? So like this lower bracket is far more interesting than the upper bracket. Like, fuck the upper bracket, Like, I'm in for my juicy drama, And
I've got. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
Yeah, go ahead. Go.
No, like when it comes to the KC point, I think it's really similar to the point you made about Humanoid. I mean, I can see why your thinking is the exact same on both. You're very consistent on this. The second you put in Niski, he is not a threat in the same way that you believe that. I mean, please tell me if I'm wrong, but this is the way I'm hearing it, and I understand what you're saying because I can see it too. You put Niski in, he's not a threat. It's the same thing that Fnatic did when they took Humanoid out and put in Poby. He's not a threat. So you might limp through the series with Niski. Or you might be able to make Worlds with Niski, but you reduce yourself to Team Kalist and Yike. Actually, no, you've got Canna. So maybe that's slightly more of an outlet, but you lose your tertiary carry essentially. You become a two carry setup. And it's not to say junglers can't carry, but they're just not usually classed in the same way of operating, right?
Not Yike, right? Like Yike, like their win rate on carries for Yike is like 10%, and their win rate on tanks is much higher.
Of course, right. So as soon as you do the Niski move, and if you commit to the Niski move, and this is not to say there is a temptation to the Niski move though. The temptation is that he brings some kind of, I'm going to play devil's advocate a bit, but I see where you're coming from basically. Like I can see why you're saying it's like self-inflicted, another shot in the foot moment. The temptations to the Niski move, and I would like to think this is why KC are flirting with it, is clearly there are problems. Niski is ready to play. He's down to play. He's a personable guy. Your team will probably enjoy playing with him more. And you might actually get through the series by, I don't want to call it like a power of friendship moment, but there is a good enough player there in Niski, because let's not pretend that he's awful. There's a good enough player there in Niski that in the right moment when the stars align, a two carry team with Canna and Kalist and Niski just playing out into them with Yike is actually enough, by the way, to get through Fnatic, and is because Fnatic already shot themselves in the foot, and enough to get through Vitality because Vitality don't have enough firepower. So if you look at those moments, you could say, well, Niski gets us to Worlds, and that buys us time to figure out, can Vladdy get through his rough patch, or do we continue with Niski, right? And that is the temptation. But I mean, I think there is also very much what you're saying, Peter, which is like, you've got a very talented mid laner in Vladdy. He might be very problematic, but maybe you should just ride or die with his talent and decide, by the time next year comes around, well, we can't live with that again. But we've ridden with him this long. He's got us this far. He's evidently got enough, explosivity and firepower to get us there. It might be that your season dies on Vladdy, which is possible, but maybe that's better than your season dying on the substitute decision. So at least then it's not the Org's fault. It's not the Org's fault. It's the player's fault almost at that point. And that's not to say Vladdy would play bad, but it shifts the blame somewhat, I think.
But I mean, I think for me, it's not even about that, right? Like, I can see a system where they just play with Niski as the facilitator for Canna and Kalist, right? And those two both play mega high resource, right? It's not that it can't work. It's that you should just commit to one, because the problem that KC from the outside, the problem KC seem to be from the outside is that it's a very stressful situation. Everyone's stressed, like you're going to Worlds, and this like hedging is not like reducing the stress. You know, you think maybe from the org side, oh, we're reducing the stress, you don't need to worry about it. No, it's just making everybody more stressed, right? Because they don't know what the system's going to be like when they're on stage. You know, two of your players don't know whether they're going to play. You know, you don't know what kind of, because obviously Nisqy and Vladdy will have different communication comms, right? Like you don't, Nisqy's going to speak more, right? So you don't know if you're like Kalist, whether you're going to have to speak more, you're going to have to speak less. You know, that is just going to stress everyone out. It's going to add more stress. So they just commit to one side, right?
Yeah, the fact that they're just not making a decision keeps a huge amount of like bookmarks open in the browser. You know, like the amount of additional cognitive load that everybody in that org is currently carrying because they don't know which system is going to be the one they're playing is definitely one that is. I mean, it's a huge factor in potentially slowing the entire system down, right? Of course, there can be ones where both you can have the swapping mids. And some teams have or swapping players, and I guess what C9 pulled that off in the past with Ray and Impact, right? Something like that. Sure. I don't know how well they pulled that off, and obviously top is less of a important role, I guess, as well. But I mean, this doesn't look like a scenario that is the same. It's very much a decision probably really should be made, and I wonder if they have internally, and it's not just been carried out. But as you said, if Nisqy was playing scrims last week and Vladdy's playing them this week, clearly there's still a lot of tabs open, right? So.
What we know is that Nisqy played at least 1 day of scrims in like a 4-day scrim week, right? So he's playing at least 25% of the scrims. That's all we know for sure. Maybe he's playing more, you know, we just don't know, right? But it definitely looks like Vladdy is like, definitely the fact that Nisqy is even a potential option is definitely affecting him in a negative way. And, you know, again, I don't know whether it's KC fans just trolling, or I don't know if it's people trolling KC fans, but it looks like actual KC fan accounts like pushing for Nisqy to play, right? Which to me is, well, we'll just have to see. And this is as somebody who loves Nisqy, right? Like I think Nisqy's like really, really good. But if this was your plan, just start it from the start of the split, you know? But it's definitely, you know, we're talking about how funny it would be for Fnatic to not make worlds, or like Casey, but if both of them don't make worlds, holy moly, that's where we'll really learn a thing or two in this offseason. It will be a really fun offseason. That's all I can say.
Well, we will see next week, and we will see who joins us on that episode of the Best Damn League Show.